right, Jake Pelech. How do you say that?
Pelech, yeah.
Pelech, right on. So the drive was pretty easy.
Yep, it was pretty easy. I've been looking to move out here, so not this particular area, but
Yeah,
I was a city guy up until this year, and then
Yeah, I've moved all over. I was at the beach for a long time in my life, cities and the country. I was born, I guess, in the country. My dad's always lived out there in this old house that was like part of the Civil War. They housed
Yeah.
both sides of the troops and everything. They would, so. I was 5 miles away from the gravedigger where he built all of his monster trucks and all those kids. I went to school with them.
Gravedigger.
Yeah, Andersons. There were some spoiled kids too, but they were cool, I guess, if you were part of that group. I don't know.
Isn't a monster truck hilarious when you think about it? Like, you go into a giant dome and just breathe exhaust fumes for 2 hours. Like, that's got to be a crazy
And
high.
leave with the worst headache. Everything's loud and muffled. It's like, hey, you want to go get Taco Bell?
Yeah. I've never gone to one, but I watched, I used to work at a bar on the Landing, Morgan Street Brewery, and they would come down and tailgate before the big truck rallies, And I was always like, man, they're just going to go in there and breathe exhaust fumes, That's how people commit suicide. They used to, they close their garage door and run their car and slowly pass away.
Yeah, I had an ex that tried to do that, but she owned a Tesla, and she just kept failing. I was like, see, women just can't do anything right now.
You got it all wrong.
No. So, I guess we'll get to who, what, when, and where. You're Jake Pelech. Are you from St. Louis?
Yep, born and bred.
Born and bred. So you're a local St. Louis comedian. How long have you been doing it? How long have you been grinding or in the game or trying to tell jokes?
Yeah. The grind, I've been doing it seriously now for about a year and a little over a year. I did like my first open mic like 5 or 6 years ago. I did it a couple times. I had a friend then who was kind of doing it. And then, I was a shit bum. Life gets in the way. Not as motivated as you want. But it was something I always wanted to do. Like, I had bought a stand-up comedy, how to do stand-up comedy, basically, like a how-to book when I was like 18, when I was getting out of high school. I was like, I want to do this, but...
Did that help at all? Did the book teach you any, give you any kind of...
Not the first one I bought when I was like 18. Or maybe my girlfriend gave it to me at the time for a birthday present. My girlfriend at the time, but I can't remember. But either way, I think the guy's name was Jeff Sankey. He was like a Canadian stand-up. I'd never heard of him. I looked at the book and I'm like, this is by nobody famous. So, but I mean, it had stuff. You got this simple stuff. The book that really helped me the most was when I got back into doing open mics again. Was the Judy Carter Comedy Bible.
I keep hearing about that. I've had a couple people.
There's a
mention
bunch
that
of them
to
now.
me. Yeah.
But the first one she wrote in like, I guess, the late 80s. And that's the one I read first. And that actually helped me start off writing better material as far as taking a subject. And she has a thing where tell me what's hard, scary, weird, stupid of something, what's hard about it, being a single mother or growing up with a single mother, what's funny about it, what's weird about it, and that kind of gets you going.
Show you where the funny is, what the funny is.
Just kind of direct you where to write. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so and what was her name?
Judy Carter.
Judy Carter.
Yeah, so that's where she still does classes today.
They're expensive because I've heard a lot of comedians talk about.
Well, she's in LA, so everything's expensive in LA,
Yeah,
but,
that's for sure.
Her book, I mean, even the new one's fine. I signed up for the comedy school thing up at Helium.
Okay.
And it was the first time Willie Lynch was teaching the class, so they did it for like $300, so it was cheaper. And I was like, I mainly did it just to see if it would help get like into Helium, maybe.
Yeah.
Like maybe this could be a door some way in there, like instead of going to work there or something.
Yeah, I thought about that. I thought about working there. I was honestly gonna get a job there because I was looking. I was like, man, I've always worked restaurant gigs after because I'm a carpenter. I build houses, so and after that on the beach, like the real money's in like bartending or the restaurant work. and because of the tourist season,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's good money still in carpentry, all year round building houses, but I could walk out $500
I
extra in
bartended for
tips.
almost 10 years, bro. Trust me, I know.
I did it up, and then I came out here where I got my training and everything for bartending was at the Busch Stadium. I knew a lady that was like the supervisor of the Cardinal Club or some shit like
Yeah.
that, and she got me in there, and she was just putting me into those private box seats with their own personal bartender.
Just pouring beer and stuff.
Yep, just pouring beer. If I needed a mixed drink or something, another person came in with a cart of the liquor cart.
Yeah.
And poured and did all the drinks. I didn't even do that, and I still got the tips. I would walk out of that, but luckily I didn't know anybody. I just came out here and was staying with my mom for a little while, and the job came about. I took it, and then I remember I was living with my mom, and I left because the waves were going off. When I get back home, I was like, my boys were calling me. I'm seeing videos of them surfing. I was like, I just left one day. My mom's like, hey, what time are you going to be home for dinner? I was like, I just got done surfing. I'm not coming home. I moved back. She's like, what? What about all your stuff? Give it to Goodwill.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's when I had no responsibilities in life and did like a year and a half in a tent on the beach and shit. Well, right in this little patch of woods next to the beach where I can still hear the water. But it's not as nice as everyone thinks.
no.
And it gets hot. The winter is better because you can put more layers on. Summertime and it's just tense sweat and everything's nasty, moist. And yeah, it fucking sucks.
The sticky heat, that's the worst. When you just
Yeah.
feel disgusting when you walk outside, you're like, oh my God. Especially me, man. I sweat like.
So did that Willie T help you at all? I like him. I like he's very intelligent.
Willie Lynch?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Willie,
yeah.
Willie Lynch. Not Willie
No,
T.
man, he was awesome. Like,
I've seen his comedy.
he helped with, the class was good. Like I said, just the right. I was the only one who was going to mics at the time. I was the only one who really took the class seriously. I mean, not
Spends that
seriously,
money.
but I mean, like, actually, I was wanting to do the comedy. You know what I mean? Like, I saw maybe two of the other people in the class. I was like telling them, hey, these are open mics. Come to this one because and maybe they showed up to like the Monday night at the Improv one time or two times, and I saw the other guy at the Funny Bone a couple times. But after that,
Yeah.
they had the showcase. I went like last on it because he was like, well, I guess you got the most polished material out of everyone because you're the one who's going out and trying it. And so,
Yeah, I think it's so you were doing that. That was in the beginning, like right when you first started. I think
that's when I got back into it. Yeah.
A lot of comedians I've learned have issues. They find that first set, like they when you first start, you have to try all new material. They find some material and then they like kind of stick with it and they don't put really much more and they don't try anything new. But
Yeah.
like I forget who was saying it. They were like, it might have been Ronaldo. Something that Andrew Schultz said was, "You're getting that mic. You got picked to do, to go up. There's other people that wanted that spot, so don't do the same shit. Try something new. It's a
Yeah.
mic. You should try something new every set." And it's like, yeah, I feel the same way. I usually always throw, not being a one-liner, very easy for me to throw a new joke in there and it bomb and I just move on.
Well, I mean, even if you change like your voice inflection on the way you hit a punchline and stuff like that, can totally. I mean, I've noticed that on just throwaway lines that just popped in my head while I was doing something, and I said it, and it got a laugh, and I was like, okay, I gotta remember to say that. I didn't write that down. It wasn't any time practicing.
The timing. Yeah, timing's only something you can figure out with the crowd too, with an audience. Like, I mean, you can get it kind of figured out to what you think is funny, but like Mike Ratcliffe last night was here and was saying, he said that he had like choked on his spit or something and like paused before he went and said the punchline and it finally hit and he's like, and it was all just a split second that I needed to wait and let it resonate, And I was like, yeah, I know all about that, especially if you're not dealing with a super intelligent crowd. Have you ever dealt with that? And you have to kind of dumb your shit down a little bit.
You mean when like the 30 comics before you gone up and done like shit and dick jokes that are like kind of funny, but that it's kind of like they're going for the low brow laughs and because that's where this crowd's at.
Yeah, well, I try to do a lot of jokes that like, yeah, they're dumb one-liner bar jokes, but some of the ones I have, you gotta kind of think about it, like, oh, I see why that's a funny. Yeah, okay, you know. And sometimes, like, my wife's the worst for it. I'll be like, what do you think of this? And she'll be like, she just overthinks everything. I'm like,
Yeah.
just hear it and let it, just hear it, let it pass through, and
When
see.
when we were at that mic 2 weeks ago at O'Fewer Place up in Ferguson, so that Monday before that was the Mary Jane's mic down on that place in North Grand. And that's when I said, "Oh man, it's good to be here," because I just got back from being out of town.
Yeah. Dude, that killed it. That crushed it.
And
Yeah.
I told her, I told my wife, I'm gonna do that again on Thursday, but I gotta think of I can't do it the exact same way I said it. I gotta think of a better way. And I didn't lead off with it. I led off with it Monday night. It just popped in my head. I'm like, fuck, I'm gonna say it.
Yes,
So Wednesday, I came out and did okay because you came on went up with the Jehovah's Witness thing, and then I came up and said, my name's Jake. I'm a Jehovah's Witness. So I got a good laugh off that right away. And then my material started eating it.
Yeah,
and
the
I was
next
like,
minute, yeah, you had about 30 seconds that was down, and that's something I've learned. Like all the top, like now that some of these actual other comedians are coming out there to those mics, finally, I don't know what they've been waiting on, because I've been going to like Word Up and Wing It Wednesday and all that for
Yeah.
a while, just because Funny Bone, you never, it's so fickle on getting on there, and they really used to annoy me before the pandemic, and they actually did the internet sign up. It really kind of would piss me off sometimes when they make you drive all the way there, sign up, and then tell you no. And it's like, bro, I've been out since 5 in the morning building a house.
25
I
years
got,
part of the game,
I
That's how
got
long
off.
they've done it for.
Yeah, I got off work. I drove all the way fucking here, the 3-4 weeks in a row. It's like, we have the internet now. Look at how Backdoor's doing it. Look at how Helium does it. How come you guys can't catch up? It takes a pandemic for you to fucking figure it out?
It's old school. They want to keep that old, which is cool. I can respect that, because that
nothing
is
to
still one of the
respect for
oldest
Yeah, there's
clubs in the country.
They've given more opportunities to the comedians
Yeah.
out here than anybody else. I put Mike Tobin up there just because he was one that really did help out a lot of. He had no problem giving a comedian, probably didn't and shouldn't have been, even myself, a feature spot or a hosting spot.
So you let me host the weekend. It was awesome.
And I didn't do great until the very last 2 shows. I did Mo Alexander for 4 shows, and he killed it. And I don't like hosting for one, but it's something you gotta learn. Everyone needs to know how to do it. Yeah, that's what I feel. I don't do a set when I host. I don't go up there and do my set. When I host, it's all about controlling the energy. Like, you have your comics that are coming on, you give your deals, and let's say a comic fucking just kills it. The energy's super high. And the next comic that's got to come on is got to come on to that energy. Your job is to come up there and try to equal that out, bring that tempo back down. Or if the comedian before this comedian bombs and it's just like everyone's just like crickets, you got to come out there and with a banger joke get it back, to neutral. So everyone starts at the stage at the same level, and it happens a lot, especially at open mics. It's the worst, but that's an open mic. And then with Showcase, and you've got like that Red Flag show I did, that was probably 6 or 7 comedians. And who was headlining? Scott James and
on Thursday.
Yeah, like fucking Reggie killed it.
Really?
Just murdered. Like, he made me I heard a lot of people talking shit like, oh, it's such a big place and it's so spread out, it's hard to really feel the laughs. Reggie proved all that shit wrong. He fucking was killing it, and you could hear the laughter. You had people laughing and fucking yelling out like, "This motherfucker is killing me!" Like, he was killing it. I was immediately, while he's doing his set, I was like, "Yo, dog, I want to get you on. Come on, why don't you come on the podcast?" Because he just came back from New York. He's been living out in New York and shit. And I want to know, like, is it really worth it to go out there? You really fucking... I know you can get a lot of time out there pre-COVID, Like...
It's just because there's so many people, so many clubs, you're going to get...
Yeah, you can get on supposedly, I've been told
2-3 mics in a week. Or a night, I mean. Yeah,
night.
And that's if you're not getting spots, if you're long enough away, I guess. But, yeah, I don't know.
I think that's what Austin's gonna turn to because you got the Joe Rogan building the ranch, and you got some other big comedian names that are going out there that said they wanted their own little club thing. And it's like, I would love to own a club. I don't want to buy a building though. As being a builder, I want to build the most badass fucking
Yeah.
venue that I can because I would have like blues and jazz certain nights of the week that are real slow, and then comedy in between.
You know what's a cool club is it's not open anymore, but it's the building's cool. Is Beale on Broadway down by Busch Stadium, where rest in peace Kim Massey used to play every Thursday
I've
and
never
Friday
been into
night.
that building. I don't know.
It's got that old feel, that old jazzy club feeling, and it's a cool building. And I think it would be a good spot because it's a tight room, so you could, perfect for comedy. The only problem is the bar's in the same room, so that would kind of get loud. But
Yeah, that's a. But
if
that can all design can be that can all be changed. Like you can, if there's room and if it's a decent enough size building, you can find a place for the bar.
yeah,
Or you can just soundproof the fuck out of it.
I mean they got an outside patio, so they could essentially just keep it that, and it's covered. So, but that I always thought that's a cool spot, but they got closed down, I guess, for not paying. Because you have a bunch of cover bands that play there, so they have to pay some kind of music licensing fee for letting bands play cover songs, I guess. And they were like, "Go fuck yourself. We're not gonna do that." So eventually they got fined a bunch, I think, and that's what put them out.
Wait, I didn't know that the venue had to pay for the rights to cover bands. I figured that would be on the responsibility of the cover band.
Not from what I understand, because there's a place in South County over by my grandma's house off of Gravois and Lindbergh called JP's Corner, and they have bands. And I think I read an article about them too. Like they didn't pay their rights, so they got like fined to shut down, and eventually they just stopped having bands.
Yeah, see, a venue. I get it too, and I see. I've met a lot of venue owners, bar clubs that have stages that try to have shows and stuff. A lot of them are fucking guys that overcompensate pretty much. They own a bar, a venue, or something, so they're acting like they have all this money. They're coked up half the time, and they don't want to pay the band. Oh, you didn't bring in this many people. No, you said you're performing. This is you're going to cover room and board. You're going to put me in a shitty fucking house sharing with one of your friends. No. Like, that was one thing I would always do because the more you spend, the better artists you're going to get.
Yeah.
That's like one thing with Mike Tobin. I've always wondered why. And I get it. He does well, and I answered my own question over the time. Like, why isn't he bringing in bigger names? Well, he doesn't have that big of a room. He would have to charge a very high amount to cover bringing in Bert Kreischer, somebody like that.
It's like 40, at least $50 a ticket then, and that's hard to sell out the room then.
Yeah, I'm sure Kreischer's probably getting $50 at a pageant show.
I mean, yeah, shit. I saw Rogan a couple years ago at the Fox, and I think those tickets were like $70 a piece.
Well, yeah, that was a good price. Like, you got a good deal then. I wanted to really see the Chappelle and Rogan tour that they were going to do. I was trying to figure a way to go to one of the states that had that, but I wasn't able to swing it between work. I think we had just got married that year, like 2-3 years ago. I think they were touring or talking about a tour. I don't know, but I was looking at it. I was like, nah, after having to marry this bitch, I'm not gonna be able to fucking afford it. Because we did the all-inclusive marriage, like out in Mexico.
Yeah.
On a little inclusive, and that's the best way to go. People are like, after I figured out what everybody else spends in average for a wedding, I was like, shit, fuck that. I didn't have to pay for no food. Everything was included. Get here if you want to join the wedding. Get here. Everything else is included.
Yeah.
Everything.
That's cool.
And we don't have to, and there's no plans. When you get here, we're not going to tell you what to do. It's your vacation. We ask you to be here this day for an hour during the ceremony and the dinner or whatever. And then you can fucking piss off for all I give a shit. And so that's the way I think every wedding should be. Because I've done some weddings to where it's like, all right, we got to be here at this time for this and then here for this. It's like photos. I was like, well, bitch, you ain't even married till like next week. Well, we can do photos next week when you actually get married.
Yeah, I found a minister online for $100. I rented a non-denominational church right off the across from Straub's in the Central West End, and we were there for maybe 15 minutes of the ceremony. He wrote it all because I did the religious thing for my family, sort of. Not that it was more for my wife's family, but since
And
we
your
weren't
wife
having an
is
Catholic wedding,
she's Catholic and she's
so my wife is,
because I know I've heard the joke that
yeah.
I always mix it up. Is she
So my wife is ethnically Arab.
Arab?
Both of
That's what
her
I was gonna say,
parents,
Arabian or
yeah,
something.
no, both of her parents are from Palestine, but they're from Bethlehem. You know, the
Holy
birth of
name.
JC, birthplace of JC. So there's a small sect of Catholics that still live there. They're less than 1% of the population of Palestine. The rest of them are like, it's like 98% Muslim. Then there's like little sects of Christian sects, like Orthodox and then Roman Catholics. I think they're mostly Orthodox Catholic or whatever. But so back in like the 70s, her dad had, he owned a pharmacy over there. And then I guess when the first Infidad or whatever the hell it's called, whenever they, whenever the Ayatollah decided to start throwing a party, and he was like, "Well, I got to get out of here because, you know, being the minority religious, and they were worried about what was going to happen because
Yeah,
basically
yeah.
a holy war just got declared.
And that's still going.
So he went to the only place I guess he could, which was fucking Haiti.
Oh,
So
which
I think the connection there is France because France used to own Palestine, so there's a lot of connections there. And then France also had Haiti. I think there's some kind of weird connection there. I don't know, you know what I
so
mean? But
hers are parents super religious and
they're
like
not super religious. I mean,
they
they're
don't
just,
know the history though.
huh?
Did they know the history
Of what?
of like their land, their culture, the history? Because there's a lot. It goes.
I've
Like
never really
there,
like sat and asked
Pakistan,
them about it, but I'm
Palestine.
sure they know a decent amount about it, you know.
See, I'd be
But
picking their brain. I'd be like, "What do you think about the Mesopotamian shit?" And they'd be like, "We've been covering that up for a while." But the Catholics, that's what I always wondered. I was like, I didn't know that there was Catholics out there for a long time.
what do you mean?
Like with the Palestine or whatever. Like I really am bad with geography, first of all, but for a long time, and then you just always heard about that war going on out there, the big religious war between the what is it, Israel and
That's a misconception, though, when they're like, they've been fighting for thousands of years. That's not true. They've only been fighting since the state of Israel was really established.
right, and from
As far as the
but they
violence
did
goes,
just came over and took over, right? They're like, we like this piece, we're gonna take
Israel?
this piece.
No,
Yeah.
they lobbied after World War II. After World War One, originally, they lobbied for that land to get it back because
After
it being, I mean,
Historic,
depends how bad you
year.
want to go back. I mean,
Yeah.
Israel's were there, and then there was the Babylonian exile when Babylon took
Yeah.
over, and then they came back like 5,000 years later or some shit.
You
Where
had
they
like the
returned
Acadians and the
the
Babylonians,
Assyrians, the Babylon, yeah, all that shit. Assyria was like
The main.
there was a huge, they were like the Roman Empire before the Roman Empire, obviously, but yeah, I don't know. Like I don't even know it that well. I just know the pieces of it, but basically.
Yeah.
I listened to a really long podcast it's called Fear and Loathing in Jerusalem. It's the name of the podcast is called Martyr Made, which this guy is awesome. It's kind of like hardcore history where he does all the research and then he puts the story down. He tries to tell it from the most unbiased point.
And what's the podcast name again? Sorry.
Martyr Made is the
Martyr
name of the
Made.
podcast. The guy's name is Daryl Cooper, and I just listened to over 25 hours on Jim Jones and the God Socialists and the People's Temple. Dude is mind blowing because basically, put it this way: if he was around today, he would be a progressive champion before he led people into the jungle and did what he did. Mm-hmm. But anyways, he does the thing called Fear and Loathing in Jerusalem, where it's over 20 hours of a podcast broken down in different episodes where he starts from.
Oh, I just did one of those, a 13-hour long documentary about the Jewish and the before Hitler, like the before Nazis and everything like that. It was like what was happening and why did it get that way? And it was like a 13-hour long one.
Would it talk about like pogroms and all that stuff?
Yeah, and like the Bavarian family and all of that shit, and like it went way down. But then at the end, it was like the last 2 hours, it started getting really biased on like real Nazi Hitler kind of side. And I was like, It opened my eyes. It taught
I
me a
mean, they
lot of
weren't
things
that bad. They did a lot of good stuff for the German economy, right?
well, if you look at what he did, no other person has done. If you want to talk economics, as somebody that went to college for it, yes, Hitler did something that still today no one else has ever done. Like their economy was, and Winston Churchill said, "I don't ever want Germany to be another worry." Like he wanted them to be fucking like third world status forever.
The
And
first time we sent anything in the stratosphere was when the Germans started bombing Belgium with these like giant guns. They started launching at the front, at the these big bases they had in the hills.
where do you think they got all that technology from? Because they just had this like before the Germans really because the Germans everything they made was just top of the line. Like we even during the wars we would throw our shit away after killing one of their soldiers and take their guns because it was better. But Hitler created the rocket propelled missile. And all that, like a lot of the chemical warfare
I
and
mean,
shit we
NASA was
used.
started by the Nazis'
Yeah,
top rocket scientists. I
yeah,
mean, Werner Herzog owned or no, not Werner Herzog. That's the documentary. Werner von Braun owned a
yeah,
rocket
Warner von
factory.
Braun, yeah. Yeah, and the OSS and everything. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, they had like how many Nazi scientists started NASA? Not just Werner von Braun. They stole a bunch of them.
Most of them. Yeah, well, that's what I've always said. I was like, that war, Americans didn't get involved in that until there was thousands of fucking French and Japanese and everybody else that was killed in that war. We came in last at the end and
We were
was
trying to
like,
make money on both sides.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were. And that's what I was teaching one of the laborers about that. I was like, actually, no, man. He was talking about how when they came out with the posters with the chicks with their arms rolled up.
Rosie the Riveter.
Yeah, and then what was that like? Kind of an industrial.
Let's do it.
Yeah, and they like all the metal was super, and they're like, yeah, because we were in a war. I was like, most of the time we weren't in a war. We were ramping up, using all that metal and selling that shit. I was
Yeah.
like, that's what we've always been. We've been built off of. Once technology came in, but like really ramped up as far as war, that's what we do. Like that's why I keep telling people like we got rid of so much manufacturing jobs. The reason we can't have all the products produced that during COVID to make the vaccine and put it in a syringe and all the little plastic pieces are made in China is because we don't give a fuck about those little crumbs. That's tiny dollars. When we're selling 1,000 fucking $1 billion a piece jets to countries, that's the big slice
Yeah, it was
that
like
we
$100
care
billion
about.
that they contracted from Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. And that's the one I always call when people talk about that, whether they want to talk about left or right. It's like, bro, both sides are fucking cool with Saudi, and they are fucking genocide right now in the Middle East.
Now it's since Obama's administration, they've been siding with Iran, which is weird because when that whole war started in Yemen, which is like a proxy war between Iran and Saudi Arabia.
Why are they at Syria though? Why?
That's all proxy shit too.
Yeah, just
Which I think we're gonna start dropping bombs on Syria soon. I
see
hope
one thing
not.
about
But
from all the news articles and the stuff I watch because I don't watch the mainstream. I watch more of the like those
you got to
YouTube-
find a source that you find reliable and don't tell anyone who it is, and then you stick to it because. And I agree with you. The mainstream means is shit, but that's a good thing to do. If you find someone who's not a whack job, someone who's
I just like those guys that go out and do it. They're trying to make a name. Like Tim Pool back in the day. Tim Pool, he's huge now, but before he was out here in Ferguson when all
just
that Mike Brown,
videotaping.
like doing on the ground reporting his own. He did it himself. He funded himself, and those are the guys I like. Now he just sits in his studio and fucking reads reports that somebody else wrote and gives his opinion, which is all the media is today.
he's good at digging on stuff and finding things that don't and stories that that
He'll point out
because he knows
stuff
where to look on the internet for those certain things. And that's the thing about now at times you just got to find who you think you're the right sources and then go with it and don't tell anyone because people are like that guy's a right wing or that guy's a left wing lunatic or he's a conspiracy theorist and it's like. Everyone is a conspiracy theorist. Everyone has some crazy fucking ideas about something. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't have to be politics. It could be anything.
Yeah, the Hill, I think, has been they've really, and you can tell just by how quickly their channel has grown on YouTube. Is like they've really, because you got that conservative Sanger or whatever his name is, and then you got the Crystal Ball chick, which is left. But they are like it's like Sager calls out his side, and she calls out her side, and then they team up together. It's actually quite nice seeing the two sit there and have a show, build it together, and they don't argue. It's not them yelling at each other. They're like, yeah, I agree. I see why they're such pieces of shit, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what, because that's how I am. I can sit there with a Democrat and they can sit there and bash on Republicans all day long. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I agree. I agree. And then a Republican could come in and be like, but what about this? And I'd be like, yeah, what about that? Because that's true, too. And they're like, oh, I thought you were on my side. I'm like, I don't have a side.
Labels
Like,
are so stupid like that. You know,
Yeah.
like my favorite quote.
the ignorant to keep separating and keep fighting, so they don't see that McConnell and Pelosi are back there fucking pounding and like, we're making money, bitch.
They fight in front of you. They fight in front of the cameras and laugh behind your back. And the one thing that, you know, like, what is the? Do you know who Michael Malice is? He's an author.
Yeah, Joe Rogan's had him on.
He's had him on a couple
and
times.
Lex Friedman had him on.
Yeah.
I really like Lex Friedman. I don't know if you've ever.
Yeah.
checked.
So Lex Friedman, yeah.
Yeah,
So
he's. I don't understand half the shit that they bring on and they talk about, but that's like what I always say. I have the science news that comes in, like astronomy and all that. I maybe understand 25-50% of what they're talking about, but
Yeah.
the shit that they're making discoveries on right
Oh,
now
yeah.
is just like
it's crazy.
is it the quantum fucking transfers of through particle light beams and
Star
shit
Trek
faster.
shit, dude.
Yeah, faster than the speed of light. And see, everyone's like, oh, once we can travel the speed of light, no, motherfucker, that's still a 40,000 year long flight. Like, it's still gonna take this many years. We have to learn how to travel faster than light.
Yeah.
And they're working on that shit. Like, that's the big question.
Well, I mean, that's how you're gonna get to other universes. There's no other way unless you can transport matter without.
We still aren't
Faster
even
than that.
capable of understanding physically, mentally, I mean, what our universe is and how big and where it is, like what it is. We still don't.
You can't take this. That's the problem, you know.
Yeah, like the physicist says, everything's theory. Nothing is for sure. We don't know.
It's hard to grasp scope of things sometimes. Like you don't grasp how big the Earth actually is when you don't think about, you know, you just see a picture of it and then in relative to other planets, and if you just see it like on TV and stuff, but you don't understand the scope and
Yeah, like that's. I would wonder how many people get to space and kind of freak out for a minute, or like astronauts that get out there and they're like, holy shit, like what the fuck. I've heard that they get that unifying feeling, like they get this no lines because they don't see the borders, they see the whole thing as one and all that bullshit. But back to Michael Mouse.
Oh,
I really
so
like
anyways,
him.
okay. So I was talking about labels. Like, if you ask me, are you? I'm not a Democrat or Republican. I don't like any of those. I like independent. I wish people would just run on their own fucking merit, but that obviously never can happen because you got to be paid by someone to get your campaign rolling. You know.
Oh, I've got a fix to it all.
But
I've been thinking about that.
but it depends what issue you're talking about. And isn't it a conservative or a liberal point? Because what time are we talking about? 40 years ago, that would have been a conservative position. Now it's not. Yeah. Or it was a liberal position now, and that's... But regardless, he has a funny thing, and I totally agree with it. Conservatives are progressives driving the speed limit.
That's a good one.
And if you think about it, like, okay, so what were conservatives 20 years ago? What were the conservatives? Modern Republicans were against gay marriage, right? Because it was a sin. They were religious. It was their thing. Mm-hmm. Never mind that there was also Catholics who were voting Democrat who didn't care. So, you know, yeah, okay, it's a sin, but, you know, there's a lot of other stuff that we overlook. So eventually now, if you ask most Republicans, they're like, yeah, we don't care about gay marriage. But 20 years ago, that was one of your biggest problems. You know, that was one of your biggest issues.
My real father was...
It just took you 20 years to catch up to everyone, which was a hilarious point. You know, they're just driving the speed limit. They're slow to catch up, which is...
They don't like change. They don't want change, you know, more than less than I've always seen. I've just seen them as your typical Christian household family, but then it's definitely changed today because it's not that. You've got a lot of the... But then again, once I sit back and look at it all, I think it's all a game. I look at it and call me conspiracy theorist, but I think it's all just a fucking show for the ignorant to argue with each other about, to keep from the two. There's people in the government, and this is a fact, that we don't get to vote on. We don't have a vote. We don't have a choice. They're put in there. Just like the people that run the Federal Reserve. We don't. The president gets to pick, but he gets to pick from a list that the Reserve gives him. Like,
Yeah.
you know, we don't, they're the ones that literally control it all. After fucking Woodrow Wilson back in 1913 or whatever signed over the Banking Bill Act or whatever, he's even said it when he got out of office. He says, I have destroyed everything that we've been building to make America a free democratic society or whatever. By signing that bill, I mean, it basically gave the Central Bank of London and England and everything the full control. The conspiracy comes out of it is because there was the Rothschilds and everything that owned that bank. And yes, there is some facts to that, but I mean, you can go down that Rothschild fucking rabbit hole.
Well, then that leads to the Jews control the weather and the banks and all that. You know what I mean?
yeah,
That's
yeah,
where,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
you get that's where the other conspiracies go. It just depends which way they want to go. You know, do you want to go your anti-Semitic route? Do you want to go it's just big banks and I'm against big business route or whatever? And then
Yeah, I can't look at that when they're like, oh, the Jews. This was like, no, it's just people, motherfucker. Like, it's just
they just happen to be
greedy
Jewish to have money.
motherfuckers. Yeah, they just happen to label themselves as Jewish. And if you really look at what the religion represents, they're not Jewish. They just claim that they're Jewish. They label themselves that. You know, that's not just because they say there's something doesn't mean what was it? Oh, it's just a can. Doesn't mean they're really Christian. Like, yeah, and that's a big thing I always get. My grandmother's like church, and I'm like, what about this Christian that did this? Oh, they weren't really Christians. What about the fact that more men, women have been killed under the Christian faith and under the name, you know, Jesus Christ and Christianity than all political wars combined? Oh, well, those weren't real Christians. Like, I bet you they thought they were real fucking Christians. Like, how do you explain that? Like, these people thought they were Christians, but they were still able to do this. Like, they're people. They have biases. They're ignorant, and I just wonder. And they always say, well, that's just the way it was. That's just the way it is. That's how it's always been. Well, it's 2021. When are we going to change this shit? It's time to step up out of that. We're learning that there's aliens. They came out like 9 months ago and said they recovered a UFO.
They're Jewish aliens, though, dude. So they're taking over the world.
Like, that's what I was so blown away with it. They didn't bring, like, it wasn't a big thing because I guess COVID took the news over with it. But they came out, the Pentagon came out, released the 3 UFO videos, and they said that they had recovered a non-terrestrial Earth-made vehicle. So it means they did not come from here, and they have recovered it. And they released these 3 videos. That's like the guy that was on the Joe Rogan and Lex Friedman, the jet pilot that recorded the Tic Tac one, Captain Fravor or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's like, and that this nobody's just, it's like, well, nothing. I'm like, bro.
Do you think that's because for the
180
last 40, 50 years, the media and movies have done a good job of portraying anyone who has anything to do with aliens or being abducted or even suggesting the fact that they've seen ships? They painted them as crazy, loony,
Oh yeah, that's
bumpkin
complete,
people.
Yeah.
And so when people read that news story, they're like, oh, is this like the National Enquirer story? You know what I mean? They don't really want to believe it because...
But it was on CNN and Fox and like the mainstream media. Is what they released it on, and it was like, why isn't this getting any? Nobody, nothing. Just back to the COVID, huh? Okay, all right. I'll wear my mask, but I'm still looking into this. And then when Trump, the craziest shit is Trump signed the spending bill. Finally, he said he wasn't going to unless they gave us $2,000. Well, yeah, bought something. Anyways, he ended up signing it, and inside that bill started the 180-day countdown to where all the intelligence agencies had to release all the files to Congress and Senate of everything they had on UFO or UAPs or whatever they call them,
Yeah.
and everything. So if they do really release it all, I don't know, because there's been plenty of people that, like, when Roswell and all that's brought up, they'll say, you'll never know what fucking Roswell is and what's going on there. You'll never know. So it's just don't even, like,
I mean, the Bob Lazar story is like the biggest window that we have of what was going on, and they've done everything to discredit him. And watching that documentary about him, watching his interview on Rogan, and I was like, that dude is not lying. There's no way.
He deserves a Grammy.
He doesn't want. And I read, I read something somewhere where there was a guy that worked for him, like wrote a piece about him and was like, describing how he hates it when his name gets put out there and like he doesn't because people just show up at his fucking rocket or whatever his little lab that he has now. People just show up. Like,
Yeah.
tell me about the aliens, and he's like, I don't want to talk about,
And
like
he's made it very clear he doesn't know if he's seen any. He never saw personally aliens. He just thinks he saw some small figure in passing, but other than that, he doesn't know. And he said many times they could be a dummy. It could
I
have
mean,
been
but
a
he
test.
saw the thing that the generator thing, that engine
Yeah.
that he think that propelled and that element that's now on the periodical chart.
Yeah,
That they
and
just added it like 5-6 years ago. That element, whatever it was.
well, the big conspiracy back in the day was you had back in the early 2000s. You had this guy named Gary McKinnon from the UK, and he hacked the fucking NASA and Pentagon computers for like 7 years. Multiple hackers did because they didn't have any passcodes on their shit, so they could just remotely take over the computers. Well, he hacked in and found because he was looking for 0 point energy, how to tap into the vacuum of space, the empty space. Because, anyways, he said that they have that information, and that's what he was looking for. And he came across this list that said non-terrestrial officers and generals and admirals, and had ships and of resources being shipped and everything. And so there was pictures of like Tic Tac spaceships and all this other shit, and they called him a loony bin. But they did try to extradite him for years. He battled the courts from.
They never brought him here though.
No, the UK decided
Lucky
against
him.
it. Yeah, because he was suicidal, because they were just like destroying him, and he wasn't like a bad guy. He was a smart guy. Lost his old lady, lost his apartment, all
Well,
that.
that's what the intelligent community does. They try
Yeah.
to get you to kill yourself.
But he said it was like basically it was like a galactic federation, is basically what he had found. Like shit about non-terrestrial spaceships that is like named like the USS McCain or whatever we have for our naval
Yeah.
ships. They had for spaceships and all this, and everyone's like, oh, whatever. Well, we recently just had that guy that's the head chief of security of space, head defense security space of whatever of Israel, which works very
I
close
saw that
with
article.
America,
Yeah.
come out and say that we've made contact, we've been working with them, we have a base on Mars underground that we work with them in, and that Trump was going to release the information, but they warned him not to, and because
See,
we're
you
not
know what
ready.
that sounds like to me? That sounds like something that they would put out in the press to make it sound ludicrous. Oh, come on, I'm on the moon. When there's probably some real shred of evidence of something. And that way, when something comes out, they can go back and go, look, this fucking nut job was already talking about that. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I feel like that with so much stuff, like.
But then you go into the CIA files and stuff that was released with like Pat Price, the remote viewing, the guy, what they made the movie, The Minute Stare Go.
Yeah, they tried all that shit.
Yeah, they spent millions of dollars, and they had this famous guy, Pat Price, that could like go in, and he went into like an office in Langley, Virginia, by remote viewing, and went into a fight. He was one of the enough that was good enough to go into and see numbers and letters. And he wrote down launch codes to a fucking nuclear missile, and they arrested him. They're like, "Where'd you get this?" He's like, "I fucking remote viewed." And they're like, "How did you see it with it being that hidden?" They're like, "The more you hide stuff, the better it sticks out in that realm of shit."
Huh.
And if you read the files that the scientists wrote up to the CIA that did all the studying, they said at the end their conclusion is it is real, and that you can do it. And you can be trained to, and every human has the ability to do it. And it's like, and they like has procedures on, you need to, if you're gonna proceed in this, these people need to be like prepared for it, because it can be a very scary, it can cause like heart attack or whatever. And it was just like, this is a file from it. This is, you can tell, you can read it. It's like a Bob Lazar. It's scientists. It's like a physicist and a neurophysicist and all these scientists that did like this 5-year-long study and wrote up the papers to the CIA. And like, you can go to this institute called the Bob Monroe Institute, and he teaches you how, and that's what they use. They used that and studied a lot of that. And like Kundalini yoga and meditation is they said the people that have been doing that for a long time are just naturally able to do it.
Well,
And
I mean,
they've
what
done
about the
actual.
breathing stuff that Wim Hof does? You know what I mean? He can control his body temperature in sub-zero waters just by breathing.
Yeah,
And he
the
did it while hooked up in front of, they
hmm
were studying him in a fucking big
Yeah, I watched
ice
that. That was
pool.
like a super star, or what was it? Superheroes, Ripley's, not
Yeah,
Ripley,
something
something
like
like that. It
that.
was, yeah, I watched it. They put him in there and they had him all hooked up and they watched his temperature. Yeah, there's just by meditating and you can. It's all facts, and like there's a bunch of TED talks that have come out not too long ago that are physicists, and they're like, that is right now that study that subject, that field of study is like every major physicist and scientist and neurophysicist little hobby study, because that's what geeks do. They like to study things while they're not studying things for the government, and that's like the main thing. They're trying to figure out consciousness and the actual power of the brain and what this is that they're actually able to confirm because they can replicate it, which means they have it's some form of fact to us. And
That's like if you go back and if you think about it, like you know how they say we don't use human. It was a bullshit thing where they used to say humans only use like 5%
yeah,
of their brain
at this
potential.
at a time, but we use
But
all of our brain. It's just different points.
points light up,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and then there's the argument that we're not the first intelligent civilization. Our 10,000 years
Yeah.
prior was, and then people are like, well, there's no technology left. But if you think about it,
There's plenty of out of place artifacts.
if we were more intelligent then, we could have had other technologies that aren't mechanical. They were maybe thought up of another way that were used. Like I don't know about the remote viewing thing. Either way, I know there's files on it. I also believe that they publish shit to
Oh yeah,
fucking
the CIA
discredit people because they're
created conspiracies. Like
yeah. I
that was
mean,
a thing of a misinformation thing that they created back in the day.
like that. Well, that whole Operation Mockingbird when they pretty much started CNN, didn't they? And all the cable news, so they could flood everything with
Oh yeah,
to throw
like
people off.
Hollywood and
Yeah.
all that. Which I mean, there is a lot of CIA and like the one guy that was on Rogan that was writing the book, but they wouldn't let him release it because one of the agents was still alive.
Yeah.
But once he passed, he was able to release
Yeah.
it. How Manson was part of that project, and
Oh, they used him to discredit the anti-war movement to
yeah,
show them that they were all druggies and stuff, and it
yeah.
worked.
But then the MK Ultra shit that they did, like, got busted doing. I would love to see, like, because they destroyed those files, what they could. What else have they destroyed?
Dude,
Like,
there's so much.
because
Like,
my stepdad, my pops, he grew up his downtown St. Louis as a kid, and that's where his family's always lived. So they were part of that fucking project where they're spraying all those test chemicals
yeah,
on
and
them and then
what was that
injecting
in the
them.
40s?
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
injecting them with syphilis, saying it was a vaccine. And so no wonder they're sketchy about going to the hospital and getting vaccines. Look at what the government's admitted to, like 284 times on fucking experimenting on its own citizens without them knowing. Like 284 times, and they're not like happy-go-lucky experiments. These people went through agony, and then their kids went through agony, and everyone they passed whatever they gave them on to.
Well, yeah, I mean, they got.
We brought the Nazis here and let them finish their experiment pretty much. Like,
Yeah, well, that's the thing. We condemn them for. I rightly condemn them for experimenting on the Jews in those camps, and then we kind of did the same thing to unknowingly people, except they weren't in camps; they were just in neighborhoods.
yeah, and
Didn't know what the fuck was going on.
yeah, that's like people that argue, that talk like you see China and how like they're people would say they're dictators or whatever, communist, or the government has all the control. And I think America's the same way. They just are a better. They have a much. They pump in more numbers to the psychological warfare end of things, with just manipulating us on, making us think we have
But the
all this
difference is
freedoms
you can
that we
turn off the
don't.
news and not be manipulated by here. In China, you have no fucking choice. It's over. They have the social credit system. If you say one wrong thing, you can't use a bank, you can't ride a bus,
Oh
you
yeah,
can't go
yeah,
to
yeah,
school.
yeah. I seen all that. I watched a documentary about that.
And I mean, I don't know if you know this, but they're actively committing a genocide right now.
Oh,
China
on
is
the
on the Uyghur Muslims,
Yinger,
like
Uyghur.
actively. And that people always wonder, like, that's the one thing that bothers me the most when you see on, especially on Facebook, people are like, "Oh my God," when they were trying to compare Trump to Hitler and saying, "If you ever wondered what it was like to live in the 1940s, no, this is what it's like now." Well, you're kind of right, except that you're wrong. It's not our country that's Nazi Germany. You're, there's something going on in China right now. They have video of them. They're rounding them up. These people have been rounded up in camps. They're sterilizing women. They're killing the young men. They're putting them in camps, work death camps. The movie Mulan, the live action one, was shot with like the camps in the background in some of the scenes apparently, or something like that. Was shot in where these camps areas are at. They're producing a shitload of products still that get sold over here. They're made in these weird camps. So if you want to know, like, when there's atrocities going on in a major nation, and like, how could we not do anything when the Jews were going? That's actively going on right now, and nobody cares. Everyone applauds Biden because he rescinded the Muslim ban travel thing, but the problem is, okay, if you care about Muslims, well, what about those Muslims that are being genocided right now? Oh, that's right, because we have trade deals to make with
Yeah,
China.
it's all about the money. That's what I've always said that America was built off of two genocides working on the third. I mean, if you see what we've been doing in the Middle East and what we did to the natives, and then what we did to the Africans, and then what we're doing to the people in the Middle East right now is just that's another genocide, and that's our backbone. That's we came here after being taught how to survive here. We're like, all right, we don't need these motherfuckers no more. And Andrew Jackson came along and well, we wiped them the fuck out.
Yeah, I mean,
We even took their kids and made them fucking like brainwashed them into hating their own culture and deleting their own history. Like,
well, that's what they did to the slaves too. They broke them of their heritage. That's why when they were like, that's why when they when Monroe was like, okay, well, here's Liberia and Africa. So now that you guys are all freed, you can go back. And it's like, go back to what? We don't have a heritage. We're here for hundreds of years, and we don't know anything of our heritage. We don't know what farm, what land. This is not our.
well, yeah.
That was the important thing that.
That's what my pops used to tell me because he's black. My stepdad's black, and I used to always I asked him as a kid, I was like, why do you call each other brother and sister? He's like, well, it goes way back into history because we were sold off from our family, so we truly don't know who our brothers and sisters really are. So all of us are brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
And I was like, ew. No, but that was how he broke it down to me. And
Yeah.
as coming from an intelligent Army and Navy veteran, black man that owned his own company and stuff like that. Like, and that's how he broke it down to me, and it made more sense. He also told me why they always grab their dicks because the white man stole everything else. They're just making sure it's still there. And I was like, that's true. Damn.
Pryor had a whole joke about it, right?
Yeah, I think it's a
grab
pride.
them dicks.
But yeah, those kinds of things. Because I never, growing up, like that was just like, I had a conversation with Jason Dormeyer's old lady, Nicole Gorey. She told me that she doesn't believe white guys should have dreads because I'm appropriating culture. And I was like, well.
Did you tell you're a Viking?
Well, I broke it down to her. I was like, well, scientifically, the brain is one of the most important organs on the body. And like the heart has fucking a whole chest cavity to get through.
Yeah.
The brain has the skull and this gnarly cushion that your hair just grows into naturally. If you don't comb it, everybody has dreads. So whatever culture you're looking at, I don't even know half the cultures out there, but we all started with dreads at one point in time.
Did you talk about it? Does she still hold that position after you spoke to her about it?
Yeah, well, then I broke it down, and I was like, I just told you I grew up. I was the pinkest one in the house. I was the only white kid in the house. All my brothers and cousins, I got made fun of when I had the white dude, spiky hair and shit. I was like, what is my culture then? I grew up in that. I'm not saying that I don't have the white privilege, and I didn't have that. I did. But what is my culture if that's who raised me and that's what brought me up? Am I not allowed? Still not allowed to have? I'm not allowed to have dreads. Is that appropriates them? Because that's my culture. That's my family. That's the ones that raised me, taught me to not see color and not see the whole bullshit end of things.
Can you imagine though? Let's just start it this way, a different way. Can you imagine if we just judge people based on your hair color? If that's how we were split up in society, if it wasn't black and white, if it was blondes, redheads, black hair, and
Oh, they
then
did an experiment on
you know what I'm
that.
saying? And like
Yeah.
people grew up like that. Like if you had two blonde parents and they had a dark haired kid, they fucking killed them or gave it away because they only wanted blonde haired kids. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Can you imagine like that? And everyone's like, you think about that now, you're like, that is so stupid to think about that. But that's exactly what we still do. And even people who pretend to say they're not racist, well, why do you always have to bring it up? Why do you always talk about it? Because
Yeah. Trying to justify that you're not.
it's insecurities. That's the biggest thing that I cannot stand about this.
I tried to explain that to her. I was like, I don't, we, people like me, I was raised, I don't see the color thing. Because I grew up seeing people call my mom an in-lover, spit in front, because we lived in Virginia, deep
What happened to
south.
just ignorance?
Yeah, that's what it is. And I was like, people are going to have to change.
Assholes.
Change
Why?
that.
I mean, you might not be
It's like no person has ever came to me. I was like, if somebody comes to you, find the most smartest, intelligent white supremacist you can find, and he still cannot give me a good enough reason why he can judge a person by their color. I was like, because there has not been one shred of evidence to ever bring that factual piece of evidence to the table that's like, this is why white people are better, because it doesn't exist. It doesn't happen. If you really want to get technical, I grew up in an all-black family. They're far superior at us about everything, especially physically. Besides school shootings and fucking cooking meth, they got us beat. Like, fuck, it didn't matter what it was. My cousin was a wrestler, never really played basketball. I played basketball every day of my life. He could still beat me every fucking time. Like, it was nothing.
Well, I mean, it's just like, I don't know. Like, here's the deal. I think you have a lot of people who grew up with a decent childhood. I'm not saying a good childhood, maybe a decent childhood. And so when you get into high school or college, say you go to college, right? And you haven't really met a really poor person or anyone. Or a lot of times this is where you get a lot of diversity as people go work in the restaurant industry, and then you start to meet a lot more people because there's a lot of diversity in the restaurant industry between,
You meet a 15-year-old taking care
gay
of their
people,
own family.
a lot of times, I'm pretty sure like the first person I ever met that was openly gay was a server I worked with at a restaurant. I had never met anyone that was openly gay. There was one friend I had of mine that I kind of was like, he should just come out and tell everybody, But,
Get out of the closet and give those.
but I never said it
clothes
to him
some
either
room.
because I didn't want to. But like that was the first time I had ever like, and I was friends with him. I went and hung out with him after work. We could go out and drinks and stuff. But then you meet like someone, say you met a black person who's had like a rough childhood, and then it starts to make you feel insecure, and then you feel bad, not because you had a bad habit, but it starts to give you these thoughts of, man, fuck that. The system's bad. It shouldn't be. Because if you look at a lot of people the civil rights movement, right? When the original bus riders started, when they would go down and after the whole, what's her name?
Rosa
Parks incident, they started doing the freedom rides, basically. Mm-hmm. Most of those white people who are doing it were young Jewish students who had a really good upbringing. And a lot of them, because the Holocaust had just happened, they had a good upbringing. And they're like, well, we can't let what happened again.
Was Bernie part of that? Isn't there pictures of him being arrested during the civil movement? He marched with like Martin Luther King and shit.
I would imagine. I mean,
I think that was
he's
like
been
his
pretty
big
consistent
thing.
on that for his whole career.
Yeah, that's what I believe.
But,
I believe he's been like arrested during that shit.
A lot of it wasn't poor whites that were doing it. It wasn't like these. It was an educated class, and that's what it is. A lot of the kids go to college. They're taught these, the horrible shit that America's done in the past. Some of it's bullshit in a bad context. Some of it's, not presented the best way. And some of it is just downright fucking horrible.
And it still happens. I know growing up, I
and
saw.
You can't say it doesn't go on now, but.
Oh, I saw it firsthand as a kid growing up. If I was like, because parents divorcing, my real father and my mother divorcing, there's sometimes you bounce around from house to house. And like my dad, my real father, retired, lost his arm in the Coast Guard, so he had a pretty decent retirement that he gets like $4 or $5 grand or whatever a month. So we've always had a decent household there, like out on the water and everything. And I'd go to school there, brand new books, computer, the library's full. I live with my mom, and I go to those schools. they didn't have even enough books for every student, and they were fucking dated way, way, way. And it's like you see it just like the, like no wonder they're not being educated the same. No wonder they're not getting into the same colleges as easily. They don't have the same fucking information we
Well,
had.
that's the
And
problem.
these two schools, and it's like all taxes. And
Education should have been the biggest reparation that they should have fixed. If they want a real reparation, they should make sure that the inner city schools are the best schools in the country, not the worst. That's what you want, because you have to educate the most vulnerable. Because and a lot of those times, you know, they take kids from those schools, and then a place like Harvard will extend them a scholarship, and it's like, oh, they're doing such a good thing by lowering their standards. Well, you're letting a kid in
Well,
who
Harvard's
graduated
made
high school.
billions.
Yeah, well, they're letting this guy in on a scholarship who he's reading at a freshman high school level, but he's graduated high school, and they're going to let him go to Harvard. He's going to
setting them up to fail.
He's setting them up to fail. Let him go to JUCO. Give him the money to do that. But that doesn't make headlines. Oh, they gave this kid a junior college. People look down upon that. Yeah, but long-term success is better.
So then you got to have this guy that's like going to be either he's going to be fail, or he's got to go through this grueling process, and he'll be a success story. He'll be a big story. But
Man,
why does it have to be that way? Why can't it just be you meet somebody and you're like, oh, you went to Harvard? I met plenty of people like that when I lived on the beach. These lawyers that wanted to get coked up or buy some weed, and they're Harvard fucking graduates and shit. And you meet them, but you meet one of the black ones, and it's usually some story that you heard that's like they went through shit to get to where they're at.
Yeah, but those guys usually are really, they have been top of their class throughout school. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying extending these scholarships to someone who doesn't have who wasn't taught because the school was bullshit, was bad in the first place. And what it takes to succeed at that level,
and make it where the good teachers want to teach there. I think that's another part. Like that's what I really liked about that Andrew Yang candidate that was running, the Asian dude.
You mean the guys at the media buried so he couldn't get any fucking. He had good ideas,
dude. And his main thing, yeah, all right, his UBI thing was like, yeah, but take that and put that aside for a minute. And think he wanted to implement, if he would have became president, one of the first things he did is implement real financial education from kindergarten through graduation, like real financial education, not even like going out. Because I went to college because I wanted to go to Wall Street. Found out I wasn't that good, and I didn't have enough money to even start off to go to Wall Street. But they don't teach you anything about what really making money and how to use your money to make money. They're still, even when you go to take those classes and go to college for it, they're still teaching you that pension and this 401k bullshit that you're not getting no return on.
School should teach into entrepreneurship. Yeah.
The guy that's managing your portfolio, he's getting 20-30% returns while you may get 2%. Well, we just had COVID, so you're in a fucking shortfall or whatever on your 401k, and that's down $100,000. The expectancy. Fuck that.
Well, they don't teach anyone in school to balance a budget or balance your checkbook. They don't teach you entrepreneurship because schools were designed to make you a fucking worker.
Yeah. And now think, okay, you've taught this generation from kindergarten through how to use their money as a tool instead of a fucking this godly thing they put on a pedestal and they put away and just like they don't touch it and they get their little 1 or 2% return. Now you got 18-year-olds, and now you bring in that UBI and you're giving them $1,000 a month. They're educated as hell. They know how to use money now. What do you think is going to happen? Give it one more generation, and we're going to be the wealthiest country with the smartest, fucking financially smartest. And then it's not going to kill. That's another thing with people will say the creativity will die if you ever implement any kind of system to where you just let them. The government takes care of them. And I don't preach that because, like I said, I wanted to be on the market. I believe in a form of capitalism, but not so much after looking it up with that Zach Bukovich guy. Like me and him got into a little bit of an argument, and I was like, well, fuck this argument. Let's look it up. Let's pull it up online. We pulled it up, and I was like, what's socialism? Because he preaches socialism and stuff like that. And not like you were thinking, because I did the same thing. I was like, oh, here we go. And basically, the only definition of socialism is the workers of like these corporations and everything, they have the vote. There's not a small group of boards of CEOs and CFOs and everything that decide what that company does. Every employee has a stake and a share and a vote. And if the majority of the employees don't vote away, it's not happening. They're not going to cut this many jobs if the employees don't vote on it. They're not going to do a lot of the shitty things. They're gonna the consume, and a lot of people don't realize you got to translate employees for these kind of jobs are consumers. Job creators do not create economies. Consumers create economies, because if you're not consuming product, you can't produce product.
Yeah.
You can't produce profits. So if a consumer's making decent money and consumer has the money to spend, they're going to go out and spend it, making fucking demand go higher, which makes you push supply higher, which makes you hire more, which makes you expand. Giving tax breaks to companies because they give jobs is fucking ridiculous. They can't expand. Those jobs and those companies would not expand without the employees to be able to expand with. They can't run a warehouse that needs 100 workers if they don't have 100 workers that want to work for them.
Yeah.
You know, so it's the employees and the consumer runs it. Yes, there are the people, and they should be compensated for their idea or their product or their service that they brought to the table that's better than anybody else's in a capitalist system, and they should be compensated for it. They should have a bigger chunk. They should have a bigger slice of the profits. But when it comes down to it, if you want to be one of these big, huge companies and you want tax breaks for it too, government tax breaks anytime you do bad, the employees need to have more rights. And that's all that I seen socialism. When we looked it up, I was like, okay, I see that. I can agree with that.
But that then turns to that.
But
it always leads to a central power owning the means of production and making it sound like, oh, no, you guys own it, but you
that's
don't.
What I thought.
You know why? Because here's the socialist thing. The Green Bay Packers are technically owned by the fans, right? Do they vote on who the quarterback is? Do they vote on who the coach is? Do they vote on any of that? No.
No. It's got to be.
You know why? Because those fans don't know how to run a fucking football team. Just like the guy building,
they should be fairly compensated. These people that still do that and still have the knowledge and the ability to do that. But just like politics, how I say politics can be fixed is get rid of politicians. We are in a technological age today to where we can do the fucking enough where it could be uploaded on our phone during our morning shit. What do you think about this bill? What do you think this should pass? Yes or no? What's the legal limit for it? Yes or no? What's this? Yes or no? Why you're doing it? Everybody can have the power now to do that. And as long as it's an open source that everyone can see what's happening with the computer system, to where it's not, we do it with our banking system. They're doing it now since COVID. Their fucking health records and everything else and on fucking video. If you're going to do that kind of personal information with your phone, why can't you make a vote for your phone? Why can't we
You'd have to limit it to certain things though that you can vote for. I don't think that they should still do elections that way. I think it still should be a paper ballot, a count in one, because obviously you can prove.
I'm talking about
everything can be hacked.
Those votes though, for all these politicians, these elections, get rid of them. We don't need them. We can still go in and vote on laws. But we can have the power to.
So what you're really describing is not a form of. It's more of anarcho-capitalism, which would be a form of anarchy. We don't have. We would basically. I think your community would agree upon a police system where they would all pay for it, as opposed to the state is in charge of it, which I think is a good fucking idea.
We have the technology to do it. Today we're running off of a system that was created by motherfuckers that had to create it with a feather. They wrote this shit down with the feather. We could do some. We could tweak it. We can tweak it a little bit.
Well, I mean, the guys who wrote it down with the feather, it's blown up to how bad now. I mean, talking about like the size of government. They didn't write the government wasn't supposed to be this involved in your life, according to them.
But they did say when the whole Second Amendment was brought in, and they did say the government is going to become corrupt, like it is what we're fighting against today, and it is the obligation and the responsibility of the citizens to use their Second Amendment right to overthrow and abolish the corrupt government and reestablish the checks and balances of powers back to the people. That's
like Chappelle said, the Second Amendment's there in case the first one don't work.
Yeah. So that was stated by our forefathers when they put that in. That's like a quote you can look up. I don't have any sources, but dead motherfucker said it a long time ago. And I try to say that to people when they're like the like rider, like when the siege happened. Yeah, okay.
The
They're
siege. No, here's the one thing that bothered me about that whole thing.
their reasoning dumb, but I was like, take it. Yeah, go ahead, take that.
But hold on, hold
over.
on. They're like, this was an attempted coup. Okay, let's say let's say they maintain the building, push the cops out with no weapons, by the way, besides pocket knives. Let's say they did what the terrorists on 9/11 did, and they took over the plane, which would have been the Capitol building, pushed them all out. Do they start ruling by decree now, and we have to follow their rules? That's like what a coup attempt is. When someone takes over the government, now you got to listen to what these motherfuckers say. With these rednecks that took over the Capitol, they would have been laughed out until enough tear gas would have been shot in, or they would have had to go to the bathroom and they shut the water off. One way or the other. There wasn't a coup attempt. They couldn't take over. They weren't going to take over the government. You know what I'm saying?
I really think the tech companies today, how technologically independent we are on electricity and the internet, we're controlled by them. I mean, we've seen it. Like,
I mean, that's why I'm buying a generator.
Well, that's why I've been looking into solar systems and everything. I got into an argument with a lady at the electrical company. I was like, yeah, I want to do that. I'm going to be off the grid. I'm going to get power banks and everything. She's like, no, you have to be tied to the grid. You have to feed us the power. I was like, so if your system goes down on that kind of system, I can't use the fucking power. He's like, well, yeah. There's some kind of law, and I looked it all up, and a lot of states did this law back in like the 50s and shit because they knew about solar and knew it was coming, and they put laws in place in the 50s for this shit. And it was like, I live on 5 fucking acres. If you can see what I'm doing on my goddamn property, you're too close and you can be shot. So try me, bitch. I give a power bank and a power wall system. You can buy that online. You don't need to fucking go through no government. Eventually it'll be that way, which is kind of scary because they do control a lot of shit.
Dude, the future is everyone has a mini nuclear reactor in their house. That's the future.
Well, I'm hoping the aliens that they announce bring out some kind of 0 point. Because I've always thought, when I get really stoned and think about that shit all the time, like when I remember one time driving, and you ever get like a semi drives past you, back road or something, going pretty fast, and it blows up.
Yeah.
There's a lot of energy to blow that whole car and everything over. While you're driving, there's so much wind and everything. Like, there's got to be a way we can harness that energy right there.
Regenerative energy, basically.
Yeah, to where we have an electric vehicle, and once it gets to a certain speed, you have all these little fucking things that turn on the car, something, the little windmill things, little tiny ones that just collect the energy. It's got to be possible. There's so many patents that they've held back, and the CIA takes over too, and the NSA or whatever it is because of national security.
Well, I mean, I saw a guy when I sold cars for a year. He brought in a car that was running off water. He had a fucking hydrogen thing. I looked at it, like literally, we couldn't take it in. He couldn't trade it in because he had done all those modifications to it. And I'm just like, what? Why can't fucking everyone do this?
Yeah, well, you can. Supposedly, there's a guy in Brazil that did it with his son's fucking high school chemistry book. He didn't go to work. He didn't go to school. He dropped out at like fucking 4th grade and went to work to help the family over in Brazil or whatever. And then their economy got better, and his kid was in school, and he took the fucking thing and ran his mopeds and his fucking farm equipment and shit off of it. And
I mean, that's why I don't buy a lot of the shit like about, reusable and green energy because...
Well, what about anti-gravity energy? Because
that's what I'm saying. Why can't we should be talking about stuff that is not...
Well,
you should be talking about sci-fi shit that's not possible now that we can work on, and not stuff that doesn't work. Look, solar power is cool. It sounds awesome, but those panels only last for 7 years. You have to mine the materials to get them, just like you do with coal.
No. They've figured it out. The stuff they use in space, though, that NASA be using and shit on those satellites and all of that, and especially now that they believe like that Omnu fucking thing was projected, this way it sped up and slowed down was because of light that they know now that light it's a force.
Yeah, well, that's like there's a theory if an asteroid was heading here, what would they do? And one of them was to splash paint on the side of it so the heat from the sun would draw the trajectory away from the Earth. So you wouldn't have to blow it up. Because if you blew it up, then you're taking one big thing, and now it's buckshots. But that was
buckshot.
One theory of it. Look, this solar power would be dope if they could build... What if they could just build solar panels in space and then you transfer the energy somehow from that down? because that's unlimited. There's no clouds. There's nothing. The sun's always shining in space, so you could always get
What's
it.
that system called? I mean, it's like a measurement tool that the scientific community uses as far as the technologically you get to this point, like humans, the way they measure it are, all right, at some point the only energy source that you use is creating like fire, burning that, and then you start harnessing power from the earth, and then you can start harness another level. The next level, level 3, is harnessing the power of the resources and everything. Like where we're at today, we know we can power with solar and wind and all these other fucking forms. Now, do we put the money towards advancing those technologies? No. Like I always ask people, what if we told our military, just sit the fuck down and shut the fuck up? And for a year, every government, every country, every government, and every military budget goes into a big pot, and we get the smartest, baddest scientists, engineers, and fucking people, and we're like, here, you got all this resource.
That'll only
What
help.
can you do this,
Or,
fix this, fix hunger, fix this? Because I'm a believer in 2021, we have the technology and the means to be able to make sure no human goes without clean water, the nutritional needs that they need, and a roof over their head. We can house probably everyone on Earth with the abandoned homes that we have in America alone, in one state probably, Texas.
Yeah. Nobody wants.
Then
I
they're
heard a
like,
quote: "As one person could change the world if he just didn't want to take credit for it." You know what I'm saying? Like those ideas, like you said, we have the capabilities, we have the ability, but somebody always wants to be the one that said it was me. I'm the one who came up with the idea. I'm the one who did it. And like the only time that all the governments will come together if there's an existential threat like aliens or
Yeah.
we're about to be attacked, and it's like, okay, let's put our resources together. But
to kill something else instead of each other. That's what I was like.
we got to find an enemy to kill. Climate change isn't an enemy because it's weather. We need to find a physical enemy.
Yeah, because humans, we're like, we got to kill something. It's like if the blood's not flowing.
Well, I mean, human nature is that way. Chicks love true crime, which is all about murder and
Dude, yeah, my old lady, like she's been on that since before it became super popular. Like when I first met her years ago, when I first moved here.
But I mean, those shows, Dateline and 60 Minutes, those have
Hers
been on
was
for years.
Lieutenant Joe Kinda. It's been on forever.
And now,
that
like,
was
all
her
that other
shit.
shit's been off it.
Yeah,
But
now it's gotten
yeah,
crazy.
we're gross as humans. You know, we like tragedy, real tragedy. That's why the news is the way it is.
What's
I've
that,
been
George?
working on a premise, on a joke about why does the news show pictures of dead people? Like, imagine if the news was like your
Ratings.
regular conversation. And you're like, hey, my grandma got in a car accident today and died. You want to see a picture of what she looked like? You'd be like, dude, you're fucking weird. But that's
good.
exactly what the news does, you
Yeah.
know? It's like my 6-year-old cousin was raped and killed.
Watch a
You want to
video
see
of
what she
it?
looks like? You know what I mean? Like, no, I don't want to put a face to that fucking story,
No.
but that's what the news does every day, you know? So that's like that Tool song, you know? We all feed on that Vicarious song. We all feed on tragedy. I want
Yeah,
to
we
watch the
can't.
world burn, or I want to watch the world die from a safe distance, which is kind of true. We like to watch tragedy on the screen, you know, and that's
What's the song that they made? Let's swim out past the breaker, watch the world die. Yeah, I used to like that shit. I was like, yeah, that's because I was a surfer. I was like, I paddle out.
Everclear.
Yeah, you get to a point like past the breakers when you're surfing where the waves are breaking, and people, especially depending on how far out they're breaking, depending on the tide, and people get small and you can see the whole fucking beach or island or whatever you're on when you're out there, and it's like you feel like you can see the whole world because
Yeah.
that's all you can see, but really it's a big fucking place.
I need to get back in the ocean, man.
That's last time I got to surf was when South Carolina got hit with a hurricane like 3-4 years ago. Right before it, we went out there with her parents. We all got a beach cottage and like a little golf cart. It was like one of those neighborhoods out in Myrtle. But I was pissed because we picked Myrtle. I was like, there's no waves in Myrtle. Like, there's no waves out there. And then the hurricane was coming in. And usually a week before the the waves get pretty good because the storm's surging in, pushing in. You can get good waves, and then a little week after, and we hit that week before. And I went out and rented like 4 different boards. My old lady kept waking up in the morning at like 4 in the morning. I was already out in the water and shit surfing. We went. I think the most fun I had besides the surfing was deep sea fishing. It's been a long time. Although it always freaks me out. I lost a father to a boat propeller, and I didn't lose him. His arm got lost. You know.
Oh shit!
Out
That was in the boat propeller.
Yeah, out in the Chesapeake Bay.
Damn.
Boat went out of control. Like got pinched a wire, and the boat went into a spin. He went to swim away, and it got his arm and shredded it off. Yeah, and propellers don't cut clean. It's a shred. So it's a gnarly shit. So I remember just getting out. You get out to a certain point to where you can't see land no more, and the waves no longer are going one direction. You know, and it's just they're splashing both ways. If that boat goes down, you don't know which way to swim, man. Like you could be swimming to China, Antarctica. You don't know where you're going.
Yeah, dude. That's like one of those things. Like when you were talking about being on the surfboard and watching people slow away, I was just thinking like, what if you woke up, you know, like you fell asleep just kind of laying on a raft, and then you wake up and the tide sucked you out that far, and then you're like, oh shit, which way's land?
Yeah, I've there's been a few times. I remember one hurricane. I was surfing like a dumbass. I had a cheap ass. No, not right this second.
Dog.
No, thank you.
How old are both your dogs?
Buddy's pretty old. He's been around since I was still living on the beach. He's like 11,
Oh,
12,
nice.
and then Penny's only like 5 or 6. So, yeah, I bought her for him, and it really did make him younger because he had seizures. So like he's on phenobarbital, and when he got on that, it was just rough. And I didn't like him having seizures. It really fucked with me. And you could see he's getting older. And then I got her as a puppy, and it like brought
Really?
him back. Yeah,
That's cool.
They still run around. They love this place. He probably misses the beach because wake up in the morning and just
Go
go out and chase
Yeah.
seagulls and jump in the water. He can't see you out surfing though, because he's gonna come after you.
Really?
Yeah, if I have a longboard, he's like, "I'm coming with you. I'm surfing with you, man."
That's awesome.
Like
I never got my
Taurus.
dog in the water.
Oh yeah, dogs unnaturally stand up. They think it like people think it's such a cool thing, but if you put a dog on a big longboard, they're gonna stand up, and you can just push it into the wave. And they're gonna
I've seen the
stand up.
YouTube videos of that. Yeah.
Yeah, my Buddy's been recorded a few times by Taurus, taking him out there, picking up chicks that way. That's how I would do it. Fucking Splinter, I haven't been able to get out. Fucking LVL, the laminate shit.
Let me ask you something. I'm gonna go pee real quick, but let me ask you something to mull this over. Do you think that our society and like as a whole, for us as humans, do we live by an ends justifies the means type of?
As in, like,
Not. It doesn't have to be a horrible thing, but like lying about something is okay as long as the end result is good. When we do it I mean, I'm a parent. You lie to your kids about certain things, because for their betterment. But in the end, that doesn't really help you out, because when you get older, you find out that those were lies for your betterment, and you proceed through life like Santa Claus and stuff. That's just a thing to be cool. But when you lie to actual adults about shit, like specifically like the media does a lot, but just because I have a story that like a couple of them that was just kind of weird, that just kind of popped in my head. I was thinking about, and I was like, man, we do kind of live that way. And especially when you see social media, like people are like, I don't care that Republicans are getting because they're racist and fascist, so they don't need a voice. But maybe some of those people are that way, but that doesn't mean they all are that way. So you're gonna, what I'm saying? But does the ends justify the means if we get rid of a couple of them?
well, yeah, I'll think about it. I've got an answer. I've got an idea. I'll try to polish it up. So I don't know if you've seen on Facebook, but everybody that goes pee, the microphones pick up. And like, so Mike, I think, was the first, and then Ronaldo came on and did it. It was like, yeah, you hear that? Still got it, Sonny. Fuck you, Mike. Now I'm like, oh, we got a
Oh
competitor.
shit. Well, no, the reason I asked that is because like I just think about like the way that the news goes. Did we get rid of? Did they do was lying to get Trump out the right thing because he was going to be a bad threat, whether you like him or not? So you take that just with that in mind. So there was a story when I was growing up in the early '90s. I think it happened out in Wyoming. MTV made a movie about it, and the story was there was this kid, a gay kid, was in a bar. He was 21 years old. Two redneck dudes came in, knew he was gay, talked to him, were hanging out with him. They got in his truck. They eventually found this kid's body. I don't know if he had been dragged by the truck, but he had been pretty beaten, and they like left him to die.
They made a movie about it.
Yeah.
Believe, yeah.
I don't know why I keep thinking his name's Daniel Schaefer or something like that, but I don't think that's right. So anyways, so that was the story. They made the movie. A lot of really laws for anti-discrimination against gay people came out. Really good laws came out. It was one of them was like Daniel's Law or whatever his name was, and they made the MTV movie. It made it, brought awareness to, you shouldn't just discriminate because he's gay because they like someone of their own sex, whatever.
Yeah.
Good stuff came of it. So then a guy maybe like 10, 15 years later started digging around and kind of asking about it. And then another story was written. This is how I found out. Her name's Katie Herzog. She wrote for, there's like an online publication called The Stranger. I think it's like out of Northwest. She's from Portland. And she wrote about it, and this is how I found out. Well, it turns out that that guy was a crystal meth dealer, for one. He may or may not have been in a gay relationship with the one guy, even though the guy had never really admitted it, even though he's in prison. But homophobia at the time, he'd rather be known as just a violent murderer, not a gay violent murderer.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So
That's a good.
they had planned. He had sold them crystal meth before that. These two idiots were planning to rob him because the guy knew they wanted money. The guy knew that he had money. That's why they met him at the bar. They went back to his place to rob him of the stuff. I guess he thought they were going to just go party and do stuff. So, and it turns out the only reason that guy was in Wyoming is because he had to leave where he was from in Colorado because of some heat about dealing shit there too. So none of that ever got out. He wasn't murdered because he was gay. He was murdered because these guys were fucking idiots. They got high. It was a drug deal that went bad, and they were trying to rob him. Now, if that was the story that came out, you don't get the movie, you don't get the law, you don't get the anti-discrimination laws.
So was it worth it? Is
it worth it? No, that whole
that
story.
guy took one for the team.
Not that he took one for the team, but like we can still say it's not right to kill someone just because they're gay. You shouldn't target someone for their sexuality. But
I'm still astonished that we just passed last year a law that it's against the law to discriminate against gays in the workplace. Like, it's 2020. We're still making laws about this. We still have to make laws about this.
At least they
shit?
got it on the books.
Like, who's fucking paying attention to what another person does in their bedroom? Like, I had a guy that I worked with that said that. He's like, yeah, people make that shit seem like it's okay. I was like, I really don't give a fuck what anybody does in their bedroom. It's like, and my real dad's gay, married to a man, was one of the first men married to another man in fucking North Carolina when they finally passed the law. And I was like, it's crazy that they can even put a law on that. But there's people that can marry turtles and shit.
Yeah. Well, but you know what I mean? Like, so like shit like that, like, there's stories, countless stories of like that go on like that. Like, but in the end, it a lot of good came from it.
Yeah, it's kind of like the war with Abe Lincoln and what the whole how the freedom slaves being freed was actually brought in. That whole war wasn't over that originally. That was brought in because they needed numbers and they were losing. So Abe made that part of the fucking deal.
What's that?
The Civil War and everything. Yeah, that was over. That was all over trade and farmers and everything like that. Like the North wanted
Well, yeah,
for
they
manufacturing.
wanted free labor still.
Yeah, yeah, but it came down to, but it wasn't. They were fighting a war. That wasn't even part of when that war was started and everything. There was no mention of freedom of slaves. It wasn't until mid-war that was brought in. And if you fight with us and you leave them,
Yeah.
we'll give you this, this, and this. And I grew up in the South. I know black families that grandparents fought in the fucking war for the South. I mean, they were probably forced to, but they were offered their freedom too in the South. Many of the ones they were told, as slaves were told, if you fight for us, if you join our, you will they would get their freedom. And then, I mean, in all honesty, when they say the war ended, and then when slavery finally ended, two other things, because it didn't reach Texas for years. Like, they had a whole nother war out there when it finally like came to everyone's like, oh, we're free. Like years later, they're like, what do we do? Because the government had no plan. It wasn't an established plan. It wasn't in the book, so they didn't have any. Like, if they won, they had no plan on winning, and the aftermath. Like, what do we do with them?
Well, yeah, when they had the southern migration up north, a lot of the freed slaves up there were like, go back down, you uneducated idiots. Like, we don't want you around. You're fucking this up for us. But it's like, hey, they got to get educations too somehow, and they ain't teaching them down there.
Right. And they, what was it? I was reading it was a bunch of letters because for the longest time, like natives and the slaves, they were called them savages, and the natives didn't have any government. They were savages at war with each other. The natives had plenty of government. They had their fucking boundary lines. They had their own. They had markings.
They also had slavery. Their own form of slavery too.
But they just said that they were savages and they had no civilized ways. And they had a government. They had a system, the place of who's
But that's
fishing,
the colonialism way.
Waters.
You always paint the
victor
native people
wins.
as savages. They did the same thing to the Mayans. The Spaniards did the same thing to the Mayans. You always paint them as savages because it gives you justification to the rest of the people of how you treat them. You know what I'm saying?
Has always taken me down to, because I try to always go to the like, all right, where's the beginning of this all start? Where did it start? And I think about it and it goes all the way back and I was like, what about the Bible? What about all these religions? If the victor always writes history in the favor of them, and then I tapped into it for a little while.
Unless there's a reset button and all those, you know what I mean? Like if something hit the earth right now and wiped almost everything out. Say it wiped out all the major countries, and all you had left
only
was
the survivalist, and
like the people that live in the Amazon, right? Yeah. And let's just say they're the only ones who lived.
Graham Hancock.
Yeah, Graham Hancock. Basically, whole theory.
I believe in it completely. Randall Carlson
dude, I watched stuff on Randall today that was I was just about the pyramid being the model of the Earth. Because if you take, I was writing this shit down earlier. It was hilarious. If you take.
He breaks down to the math of it.
So if you take 720 minutes, or whatever, there's a number that there's these consistent numbers throughout that go throughout everything in mathematics that like 360 degrees.
There's an actual.
The ancient calendar was 360 days, not 365. 360 degrees in a circle. The Earth goes around the sun, a year. So that's basically what it is.
Which I've always had that thought in my head, like, what if shit's time to a lot of people time feels thrown off to us, and what if our fucking system's wrong? I mean, because they know now scientifically and everything that like certain places on the earth high up like mountains, time does change. It is different.
Yeah, it's the way the precession of the Earth too,
wobbles.
It wobbles.
Does this, because it spins so fast.
But they took that into account. Like when they built the pyramids, they took all that into account. So if you take
go back.
If you take the height of the pyramid, and you times it by this number, so the 12 hours in a day is 722 minutes, I think. And then there's 60 seconds in a minute. And if you times 720 by 6, you get this number, 43,200. And that's a consistent number. The radius of the sun is 400,032. I can't even say now. 432,
A lot.
432,000
Yeah.
miles. So the radius of the sun is 432 miles an hour, which also goes into that time. He's like, oh, it could be a coincidence. If you take 43,200, multiply it by the height of the Great Pyramid in Giza, it gives you the exact radius of the Earth, of the polar radius of the
Yeah.
Earth,
Yeah.
the polar radius of the Earth, which is different than the equator, the other one, because the way it's measured, but it's almost the exact to the T. It's like, well, how do they know that? And that's what I'm saying. You were saying like the winners write their story, but if you wipe out all the winners and everyone else, and then there's a no story, and then it's just now that's why all the religions have a flood story, right? Mm-hmm. Because of where Hancock says if that would have hit the ice sheet and created all those floods, that's where so. You know, all these religions have a same thing. Now
They're all based
on that thing.
That's what I've gathered from.
And then the victors from that point on can rewrite another story. But if you erase them again, now we're back to just the word of mouth, which probably just goes back to the same why religion all has the same core principles. Don't be a dick, basically.
Yeah, that's what when I really because Graham Hancock and all that, and then he started talking. Him mentioning the ancient Sumerians made me really go into that, like really look into that, and I found out that they were the ones that created writing. They were the first persons known that we have recorded right now that created writing, the cuneiform text, and the oldest story, and it has the flood story and everything like that. And you can almost see when you're reading all these texts that they've deciphered and when they're being presented, that you can see almost everywhere every religion comes from. You get the Atum is what it was, I think, in Sumerian, but we've changed it. It's changed to Adam, and the E or Il or something like that, which is Eve, and like the whole story. Like it just took off and broke off, segmented, just like Christianity has. They have like Presbyterian and Baptists and
Anabaptists and Protestants, Lutherans,
and Christianity is really
Orthodox Catholics and Roman Catholics.
You know, so that it's just broken down into smaller, like segregated fucking groups. Which that was one of the first things I noticed as a kid. I was like, why is there so many different groups? Like, why is one right? Like,
well, that's the first question I had.
But they're Christians, but they're all Christians.
Yeah. There's another religion. Well, who's right? And then you got to hear the person go, wow.
Yeah, but
maybe not everyone's right, but there's the core idea is that there's a higher power.
Well, the crazy thing about the Sumerian shit was just what really blew my mind is that they were talking, the oldest known recordings to man that they've deciphered ever was talking about planets. Was talking about
they knew about the solar system
and like asteroid belts and shit like that. And it's like, how the fuck did these people? This is before Galileo and Socrates and the telescope and all of that. And these motherfuckers knew about it. And like they had a name for Mars and all that shit. And then you go really down to that rabbit hole. There's a story about the time before the moon came to the earth. And then that throws you down at the number wise. And I think Randall did something, a segment on that about the sacred geometry of like the moon. Of every crater in the moon is the same depth. It may not be like where it's been hit by asteroids. They're all the same depth. They hit something really hard. And then they blew up a bunch of TNT, thousands of pounds of TNT on there to see what would happen. Like, and they recorded the waves, and it rang like a bell for like 9 hours. And it's the mathematical chance of our Earth is damn near impossible, of our Earth gravitationally grabbing the moon as it was whizzing by.
Well, I thought the moon hit the Earth.
No, they've now know, like from the materials and everything, that the Earth, the moon is not part of the from
just
the
got
Earth.
Swooped up in the pole.
That's a theory, is that where the moon came from, but the perfect where we have an eclipse. All right, another crazy fact is they've never found another moon that orbits their planet like our moon, like how it's always the same. It doesn't like orbit, spin, and all. Never. And then where it matches up with the sun and it can completely cover because it's the perfect distance. All these numbers that these people have ran, they're like mathematically, it's not really possible. Or it's a satellite, and that's what they're like. That was there's a bunch of actually, well, like very like respected like astronomers and physicists and people that have come out and said it could be an artificially made satellite.
Yeah.
Be how with the numbers when you look at it mathematically, it's. But then again, we have the mathematic equations or whatever to prove time travel. We know for a fact that we get far enough away from the Earth fast enough in return, we travel time because we get far enough away from gravitational pull in the fabric of space. Everything changes. It's only because of the gravitational pull and the magnetic fields and all that bullshit that we have our set time. Once you get that away from that, it all time changes. You can go out there and it's only a year, and you come back really fast, and it's been 100 years here.
Well, yeah, if you're orbiting the Earth, I think they said like that one guy Scott Kelly or whatever who did the whole year, like he actually was like a little bit ahead in the future.
Yeah, like
every day
a
or
couple,
whatever.
like a millisecond or something.
The funny about the
shit.
Sumerians, you said. So again, like they had the Sumerians believed there were 10 pre-Diluvian kings, god kings, right?
Yeah.
Pre-Diluvian means before flood,
Yeah.
right? Out of if I didn't write down what the
Deluge,
numbers
yeah,
would, but if
they
you
call
add up the reigns of the years that they said on this tablet that they found, if you add up the years that are supposed to be on there, 432,000, which is the radius of the sun, which is crazy. With that number keeps popping up. It's either 43,200 or 400,032, but like,
And how do they know this? That's what blows my mind. It's like these people, yes, they created writing, but how intelligent were they compared to us to know these things? Like,
well, that's like they found in like the 14 or 1500s. First of all, how much was lost at the Library of Alexandria when that got burned?
Yes,
You know, there was ancient maps because they had cartographers back then. They were already starting to do that.
and he required anyone to use his ports, like to any literature, any books they had that were copied, and the people were given back the copy, and they kept the original.
Yeah.
And what about the big void under the Sphinx that there's writing saying that there's.
That thing's not 4,000 years old. That thing's got to be 20. I was reading something today, or not today, but I was watching something that Robert Schoch, who said it's anywhere from 7 to 9,000, not 4,000. He said that as a conservative estimate, so people wouldn't think he's crazy, but he wouldn't. I'd be out of his purview to say it was around 20,000 years old.
Well, yeah, they tricked these scientists that are like erosion geologists, specialists.
Well, he's not an archaeologist. Yeah, he's a geologist.
Yeah.
So he's just studying the water erosion on limestone.
Yeah,
well,
they took a picture of
it
just
hasn't rained
that.
in the Giza Plaza in 4,000 years. So how can there be 10,000 years of water erosion on it if it's been 4,000? If you think it's only been there for 4,000 years, it's impossible.
Yeah.
But those guys have hundreds of all the money. They're professors. They're of teaching architecture, and if you ruin their years and
they're what they built their careers on. And yeah,
over.
I've watched. Like the Graham Hancock actually is probably the episode with Graham Hancock on Joe Rogan is what made me subscribe to Joe Rogan.
Really?
Like, I wasn't into the Joe Rogan thing until like this past 2 years maybe. I've been watching, and I don't watch them all, but he does bring some good some killer guests on. I really. The Alex Jones ones are fucking hilarious.
Dude, I love
don't
those. They're
care
hilarious.
What you believe and what your ideas are. They are hilarious.
Because
That is
5 out of the 10
entertainment.
shit he says, like 6 months later, it comes true, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that's when people start talking shit on that. I was like, I would have been right there with you a fucking couple of years ago, but this last episode, when Jamie was probably back there with 10 laptops, like trying to
Discredit the fuck out of him,
everything, and Joe Rogan kept stopping him. That's true. And you think he got like 4 things kind of wrong or something at the end of a 3 or 4 hour long
Like people could argue he's a CIA shill. Like he's out there to release some. Obviously, I don't believe this, but he's out there to release conspiracies. So the ones that are real just sound crazy because he's been talking about them.
Well, you've got that is a real thing that the CIA has done. A guy with the UFO thing, he was a CIA agent that made another guy go fucking nuts pretty much in the UFO world. What is I think you can watch, is it Dowdy, Robert Dowdy or something like that? Dowdy. is his last name, but he was an agent and he was feeding like misinformation to this UFO guy and like destroyed him or something like that. Made him think he was working with the CIA or something like that, but they was giving him all this shit. And finally, Dowdy was able to come out and talk about the truth. And like this guy had mental issues, lost his
Oh, are you talking about Michael Dowd?
It might be.
Was he in the?
But he was a UFO conspiracy misinformation kind of guy that like just,
there was a
and
guy
he was
named-
manipulating like all the UFO fucking
No, this is a different
conventions
guy I'm
and
thinking
shit
of.
in Nevada. They would like meet there, and he was the mind manipulating the fuck out of them. And he's come out, and I don't know why people take his word. He was in the most recent, what's that Doctor Stephen Greer. Dr. Stephen Greer's latest documentary released that Dowdy guy is on there a lot. And I was like, why is he on there? You can't listen to anything that guy says.
Why is James Clapper disseminating information on MSNBC when he lied to Congress and everyone else about spying on citizens and said, we're not keeping files on citizens, and they were. And it came out, and Snowden proved it. And now that guy's probably going to get another job this time. I mean, you can ask stupid questions about it.
I just watched that movie again, the Snowden movie.
God, Trump's
There's
such a
much
pussy.
more to it.
That could have been the biggest fucking middle finger he could have done to them.
Assange and fucking Snowden. That would have Hillary would have fucking her head would have blown up. But like I said, I think it's all a game, and they work together. They were buddies before the fucking election in 2016.
Or they eventually showed him like the back of Kennedy's head and was like, "You got any questions?" Like, it's time to go now, brother.
Yeah.
He just ensured though that they will never let another outsider in for a really long time. That's for fucking sure.
Yeah, and I mean, but yeah, he didn't go in there and do what he should have done. The reason that Kennedy did catch a bullet in the back of his head is because they knew he was smart enough, intelligent enough, and professional enough, and the people loved him enough to really be able to make. He had the people behind him, and it wasn't divided. He had a lot of. There was still a lot of division. A lot of people don't realize that. They think
people were terrified that he was going to be the first Catholic president, and they thought that Catholics were like crazy at that time. Was like crazy white ring views. I mean, whatever.
I mean, if you think about it.
Yeah,
Catholic Church has been one of the scariest ones I've been to. But I went to one of those. Like my stepdad's mother took me to one down in the city, one of the big old cathedrals, Catholic cathedrals, and they're like talking tongues and stuff like that.
See, that's weird because I went to a Catholic grade school, Catholic high school. Obviously, I'm not Catholic now because, but whatever.
But see, it's all Abrahamic.
But I was like, I guess did I go to a progressive Catholic school because I was taught evolution once sixth grade came around, we were taught evolution. I was taught that Adam and Eve and a lot of those Bible stories, Noah's Ark, a lot of those were just stories that they weren't real events. I was never taught that homosexuality was a sin. I didn't know that until I got older, honestly. I was like, what? That's in the Bible? I had no idea.
Because there's a lot of fucking dudes in the Bible.
We were taught,
read the Old
we
Testament.
had sex ed class when I was in 6th, 7th grade, which was hilarious because I had my sex ed teacher was Filipino, heavily Filipino accent, so she couldn't say penis, so it sounded like pennies, and I was so confused when she was talking about for the longest time.
We'll go home.
Pennies.
I need roll of pennies, Mom.
Yeah, Mom,
I
what's
need
a penis and a vagina? But no, but you know what I mean. Like I grew up in that whatever environment, but like it wasn't, I was an altar boy. The priest didn't try to fuck me, but
he said, "But I do know the kid he was fucking."
I wasn't good looking enough, but no, but like that's what I was. It was always weird to me, like because when we were taught, that's like the first question I had when I was taught evolution. I'm like, well, this kind of shits on the Adam and Eve story, doesn't it? It's like, well, go talk to your religion teacher about that. Is what my 6th grade science teacher said. So I would go up, and she's like, look, those are just stories. Adam and Eve didn't really happen. It's just a story. And then you find out there's, people like Ben Carson, who's one of the most brilliant pediatric surgeons in the country, and then he believes in creationism. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, that's what really throws me off on some of the things. When you get somebody that's just out of the like beyond like in another level, another world of
It's
intelligence
like
and
I was taught that
smarts.
as a kid that those were not real stories.
Yeah.
How are you this smart and don't think that?
Yeah, well, and just like reading, like the when you like going back to the Zachariah Stitchin's take on the
The
translation,
Anunnaki.
yeah, the Anunnaki. It's like they're talking about DNA manipulation and stuff like that, and it's like this is once again this is the oldest story of human creation known to man right now. Until we find something else, it's the oldest.
Sure. Think of it this way.
And they talk about it being created.
Maybe we replicated what someone did to us with dogs. Because dogs, if humans had left dogs alone, we wouldn't have retrievers and labs and shih tzus. We would have whatever the same ancestor that wolves and dogs.
Yeah.
Like dogs didn't come from wolves, but wolves and dogs now share the same canine ancient ancestor
Yeah.
that they split off from. One of those came around humans, and those that went the other way. But dogs are 40,000 years now of human what do we want to call that? Like, we've genetically modified dogs.
Yeah.
I mean,
Completely. To everyone's like, oh, I have this purebred. No, you don't.
so is that just us replicating what happened to us, where someone fuck with us?
We can. There's a geneticist from China that caught a bunch of shit last year because he had some friends that one was positive for HIV, but it was dormant. And what he did is genetically. There's this new tool in the genetics field called CRISPR.
Yeah. We can edit the genes.
Yes, and people are using like YouTubers.
Dude, they're
and
gonna
shit are
make fucking
with it.
super soldiers in China because they're already using it over there.
Yes, they've already approved super soldier testing and shit like that. But he did it to where the babies they could get pregnant and the HIV will not pass on to the baby by manipulating the gene
That's got to have some kind of adverse effect, though, right?
well, they got in trouble, the big trouble for like humans, whatever, right? Like big laws that are just in, but that's because it was public. We cloned a sheep, and it lived for a long time. It just died years ago, but we know like that shit is. We can make a dog intelligent. We've had a brain transplant from an ape. Like it's
Successfully?
yes, they've put a brain.
That person still lived?
No, the person they did the brain and they like took it from one body and put it on another, and then they exterminate. They didn't because they have rules or some shit. But fuck the rules. We all know that the governments don't follow their own rules. What are they doing? We've read the MK Ultra shit. What else have they been doing?
Dude, I was listening to two podcasts about that, the government. One was the shit that happened in Waco with the Branch Davidians, with the FBI.
Waco.
Texas,
Oh,
back
okay.
in the
Yeah.
And then what happened before that in Idaho on Ruby Ridge? What happened to this dude named Randy Weaver? That the FBI fucking shot his 14-year-old son, his wife, while she was holding their newborn child. And one agent was killed. It is a crazy story. It's completely FBI overreach. You learn how much the media lied about stuff. They made up stories about this guy, and then they made up stories about the Branch Davidians. You want to hear something crazy? I shouldn't say the first thing that made me question my religion. This is true, actually, is what happened in Waco, Texas, and I'll tell you why. Because David Koresh, whose real name was like Vernon Moore, he took the name David Koresh. David, because the Branch Davidians believe that they were bringing the King David's kingdom back of Christianity, and Koresh is Hebrew for Cyrus. Cyrus was the great king of the Persians. The King of Kings.
And which god was he when it
Cyrus
came down
the
to
Second.
the Egyptians?
So
Was
Cyrus
that-
the
is that
Second
Thoth?
was the great one. So he took that name because Cyrus said he was a prophet from God. Not like he wasn't the son of God. They still said that Jesus was, but that he was a prophet. So David Koresh, the news came out and said that he was in the second coming of Christ, and he believed that. That's not what he believed. He believed he was another prophet like Jesus. That's what he believed. So they made him seem like he was a right-wing militia nut that was hoarding, stockpiling weapons down in Waco. They weren't. They were selling weapons at gun shows legally. 2 guns that they retrofitted to make automatic. They forgot to file the paperwork on. That's what started it.
Yeah, I've watched the Waco
And
movie documentary.
there was a mixed. They had. There was a mixed race. Their commune was a mixed race. It wasn't. They made it sound like there was some right wing white supremacist militia group, which they weren't. Now Randy Weaver in Ruby Ridge was sort of a racist. He was a separatist. He wanted the separate but equal. He didn't believe in white supremacy, but he hung around a bunch of Aryans and their fucking thing. And that's what happened. The FBI entrapped him to try to make him an informant to catch this Aryan group because they were going after these white supremacist groups. That was his problem. So like once you learn all this stuff and like, years later, he got like millions of dollars from the government. Well, he didn't. His 2 daughters did. He got 100,000 because he's an idiot. He sued him originally for 200 million. The people at the Branch Davidians that survived Waco got paid.
Yeah, because
the FBI fucked up Janet Reno. They lied about them to get the warrants to go in and do what they did. They ran over 2 guys that were unarmed, and the two black guys that were commune members of the Branch Davidians. They ran over with a fucking tank. One of them they sawed in half. The other one they took the guy's leg off. They both of them were unarmed.
Yeah, that's the way they don't. Which is why I'm surprised with that whole Chaz thing that happened in Seattle. Like we didn't see bigger. How much longer do you think they would have let that go on before?
They wanted that. That was a spectacle. They wanted that to go on.
Well, I mean, isn't it still happening right now in Portland? Like you're still fucking going.
They're
not. Yeah, in Portland, and they're not talking. I don't see that on the news very often. I see it on like independent news.
That's the only place you find it.
Yeah, like I see RT talk about it a lot, but that's Russian propaganda, But they report both sides. They have a segments that are Trump that were like right wing, and then they have people on that were left wing. They had Larry King on that. He passed away employed to RT.
Yeah, I think that's what's funny is people think that our media is not government run yet. Look at all the fucking ex-intelligence people that are their go-to people. You tell me that they all feed the same bullshit stories. They go on Fox News and lie. They go on CNN and lie. They go on ABC and lie. They do it all. I mean, the one thing that Trump really did show, at least he showed half his supporters who still probably had faith in the media a little bit, just how malfeasance they can be. I mean, when they showed like ABC ran a thing of us bombing Iran and it was like a fireworks display thing. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah. How many times have they done? That's just like the whole election thing I've called out. It's like they say that this is the most secure election ever and there's been no voter fraud. But this bitch in Texas was just arrested and is looking at 20-something years for fucking voter fraud.
Well, they say the courts threw him out. They didn't. They threw him out because of standing. They didn't throw him out because they said the claims were bullshit. There was another reason why.
Project Veritas got this lady.
Yeah, I'm talking about that. I'm talking about all the charges that Trump then brought and the Supreme Court threw out. They threw him out because of a thing called standing, not because they said the evidence was out. But they could be 100% right. They're probably right. They might have been enough to swing it. But if there's 10,000 mail-in ballots that came in with just a name and no address, and those normally get tossed out, and 2 weeks before that the state legislature changed the rules unconstitutionally, okay, well, that's a problem. Whether or not that affected the election on a whole doesn't matter. The fact that shit happened, and it always happens. Like,
yeah. I believe
the problem is the Republican guard.
Our votes aren't really counted. They may be counted, but they don't matter because when the electoral votes get to decide, like it doesn't matter because we seen who was it? Hillary had the popular, right, and Trump's the one through electoral in 2016. Right there is a rigged system. How can the popular vote be one way and then the election go the other? It's rigged. It doesn't matter. Yeah. We're pretty diversified nowadays.
Most people that are against the Electoral College would be it's mostly liberal people, if you consider yourself, or Democrats, or whatever you want to call it. I hate fucking labels because I consider myself a liberal person. But
you put me in a room with one of them and with both sides, and by the time I leave, they're gonna call me a right. The left is gonna call me a right wing, and the right wing is gonna call me a leftist.
That's because. But if California and New York were Republican areas that voted the majority, you would want the Electoral College because like if you go back, so say in the if, if we were voting on slavery back in the time, right? The right part of the nation would have been the North, but let's say the whole population was in the South. They had it. And if you got a vote like what happened with Clinton and Trump, but that the popular vote said keep slavery, but the electoral vote on a statewide level, representation way on a statewide level would have said slavery was we need to abolish it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's true, there's monocultures where people live. You go to Denver, right? It's mostly going to be Denver or Boulder. It's going to be mostly college educated people who persuade a certain way. You go down to a certain county in Georgia, it's going to be a lot of right wing Christian things. It's just, you get monocultures, and people and there's a huge population of people who think a certain way in California, and
those are usually
giant
considered the
city
progressives
areas.
today, but back in maybe let's say 50 years, they're going to be considered conservative. Like we
Yeah.
were talking, like it's
But like if it was
same
just
speed
flipped,
limit.
and I think that's the way, you shouldn't want to have as much power as you wouldn't give your enemy. You know what I'm saying? So I don't like the popular vote for that reason, because I think that historically it would have fucked over if you had
Well, yeah, it comes down to that. Well, that's the way it is.
if
That's the way it's
Alabama and
always been.
Georgia at the
People's
time had
mindset.
the largest population of people, and it was a shitload of racist, right? And then the rest of the population was spread out equally, not that almost equaled, but was less than what was in Georgia and Alabama, and then the other 48 states was less population wise, but that's 48 states to 2 that don't want to do that. But just because these 2 states have all these fucking people that they get just because of popular, technically, yeah, they're part of the citizenship, but they're in 2 areas they all think the same, they all do that, and it doesn't represent the country as a whole. So I think that's the problem. I think that's the one thing that the Electoral College gets right is, I don't
Representing the people that
just because you have
the majority of
40
people
million
want.
people in your state and I have 10 million people in my state, I don't think that your 40 million should have to regulate. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
just
but
because
I don't look at the lines because I've always called out like with and call me whatever it is, but like the immigration thing, like we have lines that some fucking body back in the day with a big huge ego drew on an imaginary map and is like, we're better over here, you're gonna stay over there, and that's that. And it's like, and that having states is the same way. If we're a country, we're a country. If the majority of the country wants to do something, then that's yes. If they were all racist, we wouldn't have had no change. You're right, but how? Maybe I just have too much faith in the human, like that. I think the majority of humans don't want to see others, don't want to see war, don't want to see us blowing up other countries, and
that's what I'm saying. Like, if all the racists were in 3 states, but they were huge population centers, right? Giant population centers, 3 of them. But then all the other states were not, and they were passing civil rights laws of this. And then
was
if you
civil
took it
rights
to
a
a
majority movement or was it a minority movement? Like, was there more people that wanted civil rights than that were? If it was put down to a vote, would more people
here's
vote
what
for the
happened,
right?
and I think people like Thomas Sowell has argued this, that LBJ actually did the actual civil rights movement a disservice by passing and letting the government, and not because it was like a white handout at that point. Instead of letting the black leaders continue on what they were doing and pushing the way that they wanted to, and not letting people like Lyndon B. Johnson speak for them and let them go out their own way, and then the laws would have been different. You wouldn't have had a lot of the redlining stuff that went on. That's what they were pushing for them, but that still went on in Baltimore. After the civil rights movement, they still weren't allowed to buy property in certain places. It was kind of like a shitty deal. It's like, it was basically a take this and shut up deal, which is what a lot of the civil rights leaders had thought, and Thomas Sowell thought that too, still thinks that was a shut up, and that they could have gotten a lot more than what they got from LBJ.
What do you think the majority of the population
I think it
would
was
have,
50-50 at that time.
yeah. So you think if everyone went to vote on just their equal citizens, just like, the equal citizens, and they had to put that up for vote, what do you think the majority It doesn't matter about states. Like, okay, there's a majority, and then we can implement that. What if is it historically the majority a more progressive group?
I mean, I don't know because I don't know that much about that time.
Because conservatives are just doing the speed limit. They're going to eventually catch up with the progressive
Yeah,
movement. It's just going to take a while. So, if historically the progressive movement's going to happen anyways, why? I mean,
it depends how far it goes, though.
yeah, there is some progressive. There's some shit that I'm even like, whoa, like like there's the big one with, there's a lot of things that are going on in the communities of letting kids do things that maybe they're not even old enough to decide to do yet with themselves, and they might be in
You
more or
can't
less
chemically castrate a 10-year-old. Yeah.
yeah, that's just one thing, and I'm like, nah. And I come from I grew up with a gay father, and I've talked to him about it, and he's even like, what? Why? A 10-year-old?
Here's
Like
what I
a
don't
10-year-old?
get.
Let them figure
Here's
that
what I don't
shit
get.
out.
Why did that category fall into to gay and lesbians? I don't understand why they fell under the same banner.
He's old school, and he's from the South. Like, he didn't come out of the closet until his father passed away, because of he had respect for one. Don't, and people can say what it was, but in that time and where he grew up and how he grew up, it was like, you're talking fucking North Carolina, like country old fucking. He had respect for his father. Him and his father had a good relationship. He didn't want to ruin that, because he knew his father was stuck in his ways. He's an old dog. He's not going to change
Yeah.
his ways. And he had cancer, and he was just like, I'm going to just ride it out. When he came out of the closet, he was much happier. But he still is like he doesn't understand all the gender fluids and all
But no,
that.
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. He doesn't understand it because it's not the same thing
Yeah.
as being gay or lesbian.
Yeah.
It's not. That's why I don't get why it falls under the same
He's like,
banner.
they're holding us back.
Why is the T added to lesbian, gay, queer? I don't get it. I'm not trying to be ignorant.
No, neither
I
am
don't
I.
understand it because that's, to me, if it's not a sexuality, because it's not about being transgender is not who about you're attracted to, who you want to love.
No, it's
That has
just what
nothing
you
to do with
feel,
it. That's
like,
just
yeah.
how.
It's your mental perception, I believe, of who you are.
Yeah, I mean it's.
And you want to replicate, you want to mirror your mental mental
If
image.
transitioning is what's going to alleviate the pain that's driving you crazy, then fucking go for it. You know what I'm saying? Like, why should you live in that fucking horror?
And my
I
question
think
is, how can a 10-year-old
I think convincing
even know?
kids that that's what they are without them living through a life, and it sucks, but that's what I don't understand is like we want to make life so easy for everyone, but nothing ever good comes out of easy life. You have to have problems and hardships.
Perfect argument. We set limits on how old someone is before they can get a license, because of the development of the brain
Yeah.
and their ability to be able to react to things.
Voting was supposed to be the same reason too. You should
Yeah.
be at a certain age to make a rational decision on.
Before we can decide to ever gamble or get ourselves into liquor, or there's an age limit, because we wait on the development of the brain, and we know it will happen if we don't, and how it'll stunt the growth of the brain, and how we're not going to be able, if you put a 10-year-old behind the wheel, it's not going to end up well. But we're going to put the 10-year-old behind the wheel of a fucking something like that there maybe somebody in their household
That's new,
that
really.
they look
We don't
up
have
to.
enough research on to find out. Hey, maybe in 10 years this isn't going to go where you want, because
Yeah, well, how are these kids gonna, if they come out and they realize they hit 20 and they're like,
I was just gay. I wasn't wanting to be a woman.
Yeah.
I felt feminine because I'm gay, which is
and the
totally
movement-
fucking.
yeah, it's fine. Like I said, when my pops came out to me, because he was worried about it, because me and my friends we were straight cis white males, or whatever they call us, and we did the yo bro, that's gay, you're fag, and stuff like that, which I've really do try to catch myself, especially for a while when my dad first came out, it was like really bad. I didn't realize how much I said it. I was like, I guess it's not a joke. It's not funny to,
It's like if you use the excuse
immature.
that I say fag because it means like an ignorant person, then just call him an asshole instead of a fag.
Yeah, like, so the whole thing is like, my pops pointed it out one day on a group of people. They were like, he's like, you're 30-year-old man and you're still using like that? That's the best thing you got? That's still funny? Like, that's not.
Yeah.
It's not. So I was like, okay, it's just like we don't say the N-word. I'm not gonna drop that. The fact that I just said fag is, I could probably catch shit, but then again,
It's not the same. I'm not gonna
uh,
hold it in the same regard. So, but
yeah, but and when I fucked up. I worked at a Steak and Shake when I first moved out here, and me and this assistant manager got into it because I did a double shift for a kid that was sick. I covered him, comes in bitching, and I was like, took my apron off. I was like, "Fuck you, faggot," thinking it. Like, I didn't know he was gay, and I was like just trying to scrap because I was all pissed off, and he. Yeah, I got fired for discrimination or some shit. I was like, I'm not the girl that I was fucking around with that was a waitress. She's like, you're a gay hater? I was like, no, I don't give a fuck about who you fuck. I was like, it was a term that's probably ignorant for me to use that I used out of anger instead of like
yeah,
doing what my mom told always said, think about what you say before you fucking say it.
that's what problem with anger is. You don't think, you just
Yeah,
do.
yeah, and that's something that develops over time. You not thinking before you speak is. I mean, I could if I tried to do comedy any earlier in my life, I'd been canceled so quick.
I would have been canceled, but like, that's what sucks about me, man. Like, I always look at myself like I've looked at it as like I'm a late bloomer. I didn't get married till I'm 38. I didn't get married till I was 36.
I didn't get married till I was 30.
And then like if I would have tried to do comedy when I was 19 and 20, just the way I was, I just would have I drank anyways. And then one thing I couldn't do comedy, I bartended. So on the nights during open mic nights and stuff, I was bartending during the week and shit. But
Yeah.
I didn't have the discipline to go. I would have to me, it would have been like, I would have gone out, done my time, and then drank. Like now I go home, listen to my set. I try to write. I try to listen.
So you record yours
Yeah,
regularly?
I record every time.
Yeah, me too. That's a big one that I don't think enough. I'm not seeing enough comedians that I think are good that see them writing all the time, but they're not recording their set. It's like, dude, you put in the work with the writing.
I have a little silver recorder I bought when I first started, and
got
it's just like that.
I got a
Something like
dictaphone
that.
too, but that's like I carry it at work. With
Somebody
my tool
calls
pouch.
you at recording or something. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
why
no.
I bought. No, that's why I bought that and not use my phone.
Yeah, and these things, and that was like notebooks. Like me and Mike were talking about last night. I had just like a stack of notebooks because I've wrote for altogether probably a solid 2-3 years before I actually decided to perform. And because John Maddy got into it, I was super jealous. And I seen him after 2-3 years of performing. I was like, holy shit! I started writing, and then I seen him again about a year and a half ago, and was like, how the level that he had gotten to and that he's at now is just like, I was like, it was so inspirational. I was like, all right, I can do it. I can do it. I just got to put in the time and the work like he did. And he's at like 7 years now, so he's put in the time and the work.
That's the thing I hate about myself. It's like I waited so late to really start doing this, but I look back at it as like I wouldn't have had the discipline then to do it. I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
Like you know what I mean? Like
I wasn't knowledgeable enough to be able to. I didn't have the time or the ability to sit down and really do what I've done to actually learn. Because there is a process to learning some of it. You need to know. I feel you need to know some basic structure of what an actual joke is, or you'll never.
you can't break the rules unless you know them. So
Yeah,
you have to know what the joke structure. You have to understand about timing. You have to understand about why. Why jokes, that's what I love about you have to listen to comedy because you won't know what good writing is unless you listen to it. Like I listen, like it makes me angry sometimes that like you're like, yeah, fuck, why couldn't I think of that?
Oh yeah,
There's times where I'll hear something I've never heard before and I'll pause it and then I'll go run and look through my phone list, my notes from like years ago, or I'll go run and grab my. I'm like, holy shit, I wrote that down. I'm never listening to this comment. Like, oh my god, and then I just think, wow, I'm on the same wavelength here as this dude.
Yeah, you're right there in the
Like, and then you hear like a really funny, like smart, like Cal Kinane. I think it's Cal Kinane's joke where he's like, why don't people that play the lottery, how come people that play the lottery aren't more scared of lightning? That's hilarious.
Yeah,
dude. That's a really smart joke.
I'm a big Stephen Wright fan. I think he's a genius when it comes to this one line, off the fucking just some of them you have to really think about, and like I'm sure there's a lot of times he's done sets in not such intelligent rooms and just not done well because some of his stuff is just it's like what is it? One of my favorites of his
I
is
bet he struggled early on because
oh
people
yeah,
didn't know. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Like he probably had those rooms where he was great in, and then just the other ones. But then like once eventually he caught steam and was on Tonight Show, then people are like under. Okay, I knew what I'm in for when he went up to go see him, you know. But those early days, I bet shit. Someone's like, "Come on, talk faster" or something. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
boring.
that shit with him
Some
saying like
shitbird in the audience.
was it like just the sometimes I watch some of his shit and I'll be like that's how did he come up with like the I went on camping trip with my girlfriend and
Writing, man, that's it.
yeah and
He probably wrote
he got a
fucking
Grammy
3
for a
notebooks
movie.
before he got that joke.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like all the throwaway material, he probably maybe never even saw the light,
Oh
even
yeah,
took
you
it on
can
the
see
stage.
it too. Yeah, you can see some from like I've watched his older stuff where he was just getting onto the night shows and stuff like that, and seeing the joke in the beginning, and now you see it in his special, and it's like, oh, okay, you can see how a one-liner can change stuff. That was one thing I've watched, like how a one-liner can change. Like Stephen Wright's got a lot of stuff out from like just the night shows to where when he was young and he's done specials when he was older because he's still performing out in like Texas and shit.
Yeah.
And you can see where he's just changed it up a little bit, and it's really hard to change a one-liner once you get it set. And it's,
Yeah.
you know, I've been connecting them together here and there for the certain mics. Like I'm doing more storytelling lately just because I've had some stuff I've been wanting to play with and it's been landing. So at the mics I've been going to,
Yeah.
like the Red Flag, I don't know, that wasn't a good night.
Did you just do 5?
No, well I was told to prepare. I was like I could get 10 or 12, like 10 to 12, prepare for that. And then I got there, and before I was going out there, like yeah, we'll give you the light at 7, do 8. It's like. Well, I know I'm a one-liner, but damn, I do have a little bit of structure here. I have
Yeah.
everything set up, so, and I had been working on it, so I wasn't carrying up no notebook or paper, so that threw me off. I was like, well, I can't, like, I'm gonna connect something and it doesn't go there because I still do have certain jokes that go together.
Yeah.
Like the my married frame, like all the way up to the end, like just marriage material. I can put all that together. But if you cut my time, I can take some jokes
Yeah.
out of that. But
That's how I put mine together. I try to keep it a somewhat of a theme.
yeah, I that is one thing about the like one-liner game too is like I can jump from like storytellers. They tell a story. The story is the joke, and they punch that story up with funny little jokes throughout it until the big punchline.
Yeah.
And I can go in there and do some of that storytelling, but then take it off to a completely different place. I could be talking about sports and then all of a sudden jump into an abortion joke, just right off the bat. Like
David Tell's really good at that. Like he has a lot of one-line throwaway jokes, and then he has fucking stories that are hilarious. Like when he talked about swimming with dolphins with the special kids.
yeah, so that's kind of what right now I've been working on mostly is this because I got so many notebooks, and that's how I write. I wrote when I started comedy. I started off thinking I wanted to do storytelling. It wasn't until like 6 months in I was like I like doing one-liners, and I just kind of stuck with it and kept doing it. It's really annoying when you hear somebody that's like a comedian. Comedians are like, yeah, that's how I started off in the beginning too. It's like, no, I did do one-liners. It's not like it's just something but I do polish up my storytelling. So like the Black History Month jokes I did. I wrote that like 2 years ago with my pops, and it lands at the right crowd. Like I talk about how I was the pinkest one growing up, and I went to all black schools. I peed with the best of them. I stood a little closer than the rest, but I still hung in there. Well, I didn't hang. I kind of just sat.
You got to
on
throw
my
in the
set.
old trope.
Yeah. So I did the better. We besides water sports and school shootings, they got us beat at pretty much everything.
Yeah.
And that's like a whole. I can do like 10 minutes of that, and it ends on how black or cultured women are just so much prettier and like and thicker, and the women, and and that takes me to, like, there's something that's being missed on chicks nowadays. It's all about the ass. Everyone's all about the ass. And the titties are just getting ignored, and women spend a lot of money pushing the bitches up. But I get it because no one pays attention to it.
Is that gonna switch soon? That butt implants are gonna take over breast implants?
They already have. And like I ended with like no one pays attention to a 57 flat tops front end drives by, like because it's got the big old wings on the ass and everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but it's done pretty well. At the mics I've been going to. I haven't gone to the Funny Bone. I haven't even signed up in a while.
I've not got on. This will be my 4th week, and if I sign up tonight, dude.
But post it.
That's all it is, man. Like, you know, you were asking me earlier about like what's like the tip or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like just reps, and that's all I've ever been told. You got to write and reps. People get to those jokes through writing and writing and writing, and reps and reps and reps, and that's the only way. And like,
Did your writing change at all though? Did you figure out a better way to write as you progressed through it, and after you started performing? You were writing originally, and you started performing.
There was a guy. I don't know if you know him. He's an older comic. He's been around for a while and just in local. His name's Tom Shelton.
I've heard.
I was on a group. So when I did the helium thing, Lily Lynch was like, buy the Comedy Bible, the new one from Judy Carter. And I was like, holy shit, I have the old one, you know? So I got the new one. And there was a thing like join a group in there and was like, try to find a comedy buddy. Well, he was part of this Facebook group for the Comedy Bible book too. And so like me and him would meet up before the Funny Bone, sign up on Tuesdays at that taco place, Fuzzy's. And we would just kind of talk and shoot the shit. And I would run into material by him. And he was like, well, how do you write? And he kind of told me like how he does it. And he basically, so I kind of take what he did. So what I do is I'll write out in my notebook, whatever, if I have an idea or a punchline or a premise or a whole story, and I'll just start writing whatever it is. I write it out. I get it all on there. And then I go on my computer and then I type it out. But I type it out I put setup, basically SU setup, and then I type what my setup for it is going to be, and then where my punch is. And Willie Lynch told me that too. He's like, you got to go through your set and identify where your punchline's at. And once you identify where your punchline's at, then you know when to stop and wait for the laughs.
So finding the funny
of
your
exactly.
Yeah, that's how I think that was a big one for me once once that clicked in my head, because like I said, I still write as a storyteller. Everything I write down is usually something that either happened or it made me think of that.
Yeah.
And then I got to go through it, read it back over, and be like, where is the setup and the punch? And now then I go through and shorten it as much as I can. What information is unnecessary?
Well, that's what helped me trim is when, instead of having handwritten, when I typed it out, I could go, okay, well, I don't need to say this much in the setup. I can take this out and make it shorter. Okay, that lines probably didn't land because that punchline's too long. So instead of having just a bunch of handwritten notebooks, which I do have, I transfer it over to make it more structured. And that helped me out a lot.
It's another process of remembering too, to help you.
Because I have to fucking like rehearse my shit. I can't just write it down and go, this is what I'm going to say. I have to get up. I say it into a recording. I listen to it. I go back and edit it. Before I go up to an open mic, I've probably already said it 15, 20 times at least in my basement into a fucking...
Yeah, I used to record myself driving to, like, when I do the back door, I had like a 50-something minute long drive, so I could sit there and practice my set and record myself, put my phone up on the dashboard and just record myself and watch it open and just keep doing that and watch it for my timing and stuff. And then it kind of started getting... making me feel more robotic and not being. Once I started, all right, I got that down. I know how to.
Once I know it, I don't do that. Then. But if it's a new joke, I gotta rehearse it a fuckload.
Oh yeah. Especially I'm sure as a storyteller to be able to just have it imprinted because you have in depth usually. You go through, what is it like the one I really like the your bad day. A weird kind of week where you're pickleball.
Oh,
the drug dealer pickleball. Yeah. I was like you went through that whole thing, and it's like
That was on a whim too. I had
Mhm.
barely written that one out. Like I don't even do that one. That was just kind of that.
But you were
in the
trying
night.
it, and you
Yeah.
got on at the mic, and you tried something new, and that's
I always try. Yeah, that's the thing too. Like you were saying, like trying something new. Like I always try to, shit. Everything I did that first night, I went to the Mary Jane's on Monday. All that was new material. I was like, I'm gonna either get fucking booed out of here.
yeah. Like I say, I do that sometimes. I get to a point to where my notebooks get so, just I get so many ideas and so many little pages, and my at first my ideas are just like a sentence, and then I go through and write it out as a storytelling, and it gets to a point to where it's like, all right, there's a lot. I'm gonna, start forgetting these sentences, and you'll see me not even sign up for any. You won't see me at a mic for a week or two because I'm just writing, and I'm like, I don't even need to waste the gas because I'm tired of telling these jokes. I'll take that 5 minute set, and I'll just, all right, there's that, and then try to work on a whole nother 5 minutes, but I mix it up still, and that's how I could now. I go in and I'll just try one or two, and as a one liner, I could probably put two or three in a 5 to 6 minute set, and it not make me bomb completely. But a
Yeah.
storyteller with a 5 minute set, you fuck up two of them. that's a
I'm trying to get more act outs. That's what I don't do enough of. Like I try to my jokes are like set up punch, and instead of I need to end
more animated and
more animated. I know that was like a big. I've noticed that like watching a lot of stand up. Like okay, that's what I'm not doing. Like I've noticed that, and I've watched a lot of people like Max Price. He does a lot of like he does a lot of animating talking because it was hilarious. I went to over the summer. They were doing those on Saturday nights. They were doing like Best of St. Louis. I went one of the nights. It was like him, Greg Warren. I think Purdy B was there, and Scott James. But when he was up there and he did a set, and he's fucking funny, So my wife was like, "Is he gay?" And I was like, "No," but just like his manners, and I was like, "God," because he's good at doing the act out for his punches and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't do any of that. And I was like,
yeah.
okay, so I learned that from watching him and other people. Okay, I gotta start fucking doing that when I'm saying, oh, instead of saying, my wife says this, I gotta talk like my wife. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, that's. I do some. I'll get into some to where I do that, but then again, sometimes I like the sitting on the stool being just mono. So especially at the back door, I like to drag the stool across the stage and just sit there and do my set. And
Well, there's that whole embrace the silence, because
yeah,
you
yeah.
can that's like a
I
whole
can
part of
stretch out.
comedy
Yeah.
is like if
A
it's
good
quiet,
crowd.
quiet, boom, and then you
Yeah.
hit them with something,
I started that doing just to be able to work on timing because I had all these. I was realizing like one of my sets one night I was like I had these jokes that I had all prepared and I was like rehearsing it and it was coming out to 5 minutes in, but when I got on stage and was
Yeah.
excited, so I fucking started
3
saying it
minutes?
fast.
I
Yeah,
was
3
thinking,
minutes,
like,
and I'm out
what
of
the fuck?
material. Shit, I still got 2 minutes left. So I was.
I hate that.
Yeah, so that's when it just kind of. For one, you got to have an arsenal of jokes, and you got to have them ready to go. And you got to know your crowd.
I have like two outs, in my head that like, okay, if this goes bad, I'm gonna try and say this and see what happens. Like if it's going bad, and the other out is, all right, that's my time.
I've recently implemented just like a fun fact. If I'm like searching through something, fun fact. Abortionists are bad pediatricians, and
Yeah.
get a couple little seconds to be like, all right, what is that going, and just dumb little ones like that, which I like abortion jokes. Those are my favorite. I had Adam Thacker on the other day, and his
Yeah.
material. Like
He's
I
funny,
enjoy
dude.
his shit. I really enjoy his how he's on the edge and really.
I did this apartment show with him like in the beginning of December. Like, I
Yeah.
got to hang out with him for a little bit in the back. He's funny, dude.
I did a private birthday party show with him probably around then, and I've seen him just fucking kill it, and then I've seen some crowds that are
They don't
more,
like his material, but then he even told
and
me
he
because
goes
I think
even
it's
harder.
funny. Yeah, he goes even harder, which is what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed him, like, because I've always been like I like Daniel Tosh, and how he says he's like, eventually I'm gonna say something, and they're gonna be like, huh, he thought he could say it, like he thought he could say that, and you'll never see me again.
Yeah.
Like
Oh
that's
yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I love Tosh.
yeah,
Yeah.
and Jesselnick and
What I haven't seen him do much recently.
yeah, maybe
Did he
he's
get Me
still
Too'd?
writing. No, he's just I know he's been on the Comedy Central roast battle thing. He was doing that for a little while with like Nikki, but maybe he's the type that I don't know how long his average, how long it takes to write a full
Yeah.
hour special. I'm sure pretty long.
I mean, I guess he just had one come out not too long ago, didn't he?
Yeah, like 2 years ago.
Not
maybe.
even that, was it?
Where he was wearing, I think the Netflix special.
Yeah, yeah.
Which was
It was
killer.
funny. Yeah.
The first time he saw his picture of his dad's dick. Don't text me shit like that. Like, yeah, he's one of those guys that's right up there on one of my favorite one-liners that's still in the game. Jimmy Carr's cool. I think he's fucking a great crowd specialist one-liner that you don't get that very often. And those fucking they're English, I think. I don't want to say British or whatever the homeland they're
Yeah.
from.
The UK.
Yeah, they don't fuck over. Their comedy is, they have all kinds of different comedy out there. Like I feel America's comedy is predominantly storytelling. You don't see much. You got Jeff Dunham as a ventriloquist, and that's about it.
He's like the only one.
Yeah, we
though.
don't really have since Mitch Hedberg's died. You don't see Stephen Wright out there doing too much on TV. We got all storytellers. We don't we don't have too many guys that come, and even the guys that started off as one-liners. What I always hear of Dimitri something.
Dimitri Martin.
Yeah, like, and he's even goes into the storytelling more. And it's like, yeah, we don't have that a wide range of different kinds of comedians.
Because that's not like
Well, I guess we got
that's
good
not the
crowd work,
appetite
yeah.
now. It used to be set
We
up
got king
punch,
crowd
boom,
work,
boom.
though. Yeah.
Like I've been listening to old Rodney specials and
You wanted to get really
Red
old.
Fox.
Yeah, Red Fox is a good one. Penny Youngman is like the OG, the old school dude of one-liners. He's like black and white videos. He comes out with a violin and he tells us the fucking joke and does another joke, and he's all dressed in a tuxedo and shit.
See, but that stuff's good to listen to because that's also you can learn new. You can that's another way to write jokes. That,
Oh yeah,
you know
I
what I'm
had
saying?
Mike. I was showing him Penny Youngman, and it's so old. Like it's like 50 status.
Yeah.
And he's like, that shit's so hacky. I'd be pissed if I spent money on it. I was like, dude, this was comedy back then, though.
Dude,
you
Lenny
know?
Bruce's stuff now, if you listen to, is not funny.
No.
It's not- I mean-
especially the stuff that you can really get your hands on. Like,
He's just doing social commentary, but it's really not that funny. You know what I mean? Like,
and I say that to a lot of people. That's one thing that separates a lot of greats and legends is they create jokes that are timeless. It's going to be funny. Like Richard Pryor had a lot of them. Robin Williams. These legends that go down, they had jokes that were funny in the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and today still. Even people hear it and it's still fucking funny.
well, that's like Carlin, dude.
Yeah,
Carlin's got a lot of bits that
Carlin's still touching base. Like it's like
stuff today. You can be like, well, that
very
applies today.
ironic how
Have you ever seen the thing where he goes, before he made it famous as like the hippy dippy Weatherman? That was like his little act. Before he was like the conscious stoner dude who'd made the jokes. He had like this, it was like a character he created, the hippy dippy Weatherman. And I think he went on Carson one time in the 70s and was like, yeah, the hippy dippy Weatherman's dead. Hello, I'm George Carlin. And that's how he like killed that comedy persona. He never did it again. If you went there and people were like, do the hippy dippy Weatherman, he was like, get the fuck out of my on it. Like he never did it again. Like they killed that comedy persona.
I think there's a few comedians that need to learn how to do that, like, or should have learned before they died, like Kinnison. If Kinnison could have, because that screaming, that style, like
Yeah, but that was him though.
that was him, but it wasn't throughout a lot of his beginning phase. It was just a bit that he got stuck with, and everybody wanted to see that style.
Well, that's
so
like Bobcat Goldthwait, remember? Everyone wanted him to be the crazy animal guy from the Police Academy movies when he would go do stand-up. And he's like, I don't do that. That was an act I created, you know?
What if I wonder if like Jeff Dunham would ever come out and just do a stand. Does he have any specials out with just him?
Just him doing stand-up?
No dummies.
I mean, I would imagine he does fun. He writes jokes. He's just writing
Right.
jokes for other characters. I
Yeah.
mean, he's basically. I mean, think of how many stand-ups do write for TV shows. Like Ian Edwards forever wrote for TV shows. Apparently, that's why no one knows who he is until now. Because Rogan helped blow him up, but he is hilarious. I saw him last year at the Flyover Comedy Festival.
Yeah.
They brought him here, and he did the little room at the where we do the open mics at the Monday night at the Improv.
I haven't
saw
been
him
to
in
that
there.
one.
It
I've
was
never
dope
gone to
as
that
fuck.
one. How is the Improv? That's the one club I just never went to because somebody told me that. I think it might have been John. They're like, yeah, you might want to get some material together. Like,
It doesn't
at the
matter. I go
It's-
there to bomb. It
Yeah.
doesn't like it's all comics, and then you might get some of the spillover from people that couldn't get tickets for the improv show that's in the other room, and so they come in and
Oh, they have a set. They're set up this.
if you do well, I mean, it's good. But like I said, it's just mostly comics, and I liked going because it was a good humbling thing. But but it was,
I'm gonna hit the actual comedy clubs up once they're all open back up. Pretty, I'm gonna good. But right now, I've just been doing the bars ones that we've,
whatever opportunity you can get, man.
Yeah,
That's
I
all I've
just
been trying to
haven't-
do too.
I haven't signed up. I know the Funny Bone's back open, which is cool. I haven't really even signed up for any of that. I've been doing this and the other. It's on Tuesday. The Word Up. I really like the Word Up. That's got the best.
I haven't got
crowd.
out to that one yet.
It's probably one of my favorites as far as at that place. And those wings are so fucking good.
Yeah.
I get like the big 25 of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my favorite thing. You got any shows coming up?
Well, Gary asked me to go one in February at the Red Flag, Thursday night. I think it's like the 17th, maybe.
It's
something
a nice
like that.
place. It's a real nice place.
And
The
then,
crowd was decent.
That's cool.
Like Reggie, like I said, Reggie fucking murdered it.
I think Will's gonna headline this one, but I'm not sure.
O'Donnell?
I love Will O'Donnell. He's fucking
Yeah,
hilarious.
I had
dude.
him on. I really liked having him. He could hold a conversation like you. You can sit there and hold a conversation. You can watch some of the episodes, and they're just like to answer questions. It's like, oh my god! All right, well let me.
Dude, we
fucking-
went on like 8 different tangents at least
Yeah.
on one fucking topic of different. I can go all day on that shit just because of
That's-
stupid knowledge that's in my head.
And that's all this is like I started this just to be like, there's certain comics I just want to hang out with and pick their fucking brain. I like Molly Amberger's thing, how she does things. You get a lot of information. Like she has prepared questions, structured, professional. It's just not my gig. I like hers and I like watching hers, but if I'm gonna sit there, spend the money and the time that I do, during the actual thing, I'm gonna get to know the person. I can ask you questions that I can probably find somewhere else, LinkedIn or Facebook or something, or another podcast that the guests are big on. But sitting there and just talking like this is the way you actually I feel you actually can get to know somebody, because I tried the structure thing. It's just weird. And then with the people that are expecting it, it's like, it's awkward through the whole thing, and then when they leave, it's even awkward. Usually, when it's done, like Nick Lacer was a real good one. Will O'Donnell, most of the guests, it's like they leave and they're like, "Oh, this was fun." Like Nick, he's like, "I haven't been out forever since the back door." I was like, "I know, man. Welcome over anytime."
Yeah, he needs to go out more. He needs to get out more to some of the shows.
Yeah, he just lives all the way out there in St.
Oh,
Charles.
that's a bummer.
Yeah, because I know it's 40-something minutes for me. And all the comics from that live out there that I hit up, every time like most of them, we get something scheduled and they're like, the day of, I'm like, "Hey, we still on?" And they're like, "Yeah, send me your address." And I send them the address, like, "Oh shit, you live like almost an hour away." Or they're always like, "You live like over an hour away." I was like, "Dude, it's 40 minutes."
Yeah, it's straight highways, no big deal.
Yeah. But I'm like, and it's worth it, I promise. Got beer, weed.
No, dude, this is cool. I like this. This is fucking dope.
It's my little home away from home.
I like shooting this shit about anything. I can talk about whatever. Like people get uptight about everything, and that's the biggest thing that bothers me. It's like,
Well, the only way to fucking figure it all out is to sit there and talk. Is you gotta get people gotta have you gotta hear other people's opinions to get the full spectrum, the full view of everything. Like if you can't put yourself in their shoes, then you're just one way biased. Everyone grows up differently. Everyone has different problems, and if you can't like understand that, all right, I didn't have that issue, I didn't have that problem, but if I did, I can see how I could be where they're at, or how I could see how that could be that way. But most people are just like, nope, you should be this way. This is how it's supposed to be.
Well, in 20 years that changes. So you know what I'm saying? Like that's why I don't like labels. That's
Hopefully
why I always
won't
say
be appropriating culture in 20 years because they're
Fuck all that.
Because I'm not letting them go.
Yeah, I don't.
But here's another one I'm going to be having a lot. I expect to have return guests, and I hope you'll come back on.
Definitely, man.
Anytime you have a show you want to, or you're doing sketch, anything you got and you want to try to put out there, I've been getting, average of like, well, actually a couple of videos. I just started doing this hashtag thing, and it's got me like 600-700 views on different videos. So I mean,
we're in Barnhart, and I'm on Elijah's show down at J Street in February.
Are you on that
the 25th, I think.
Oh yeah.
So if anyone around Barnhart area in Perryville, we can just drive on down.
Is he doing it out here in Barnhart?
No, it's down to J Street in Perryville.
Oh, okay,
but that's only like 30 minutes from here.
Yeah, it's not far.
It's not far at all, right?
No, it's a pretty nice place. I had some of their food. It's pretty good. Were you there last time?
I haven't been down there yet. So I was supposed to go down in November, and then it got canceled because of the COVID shit. So.
Wait, we didn't do a Elijah show together?
Mm-mm.
Oh. Well, yeah, I did one not too long ago, and I remember there was this group of like probably lower 40s, like 6 white women, upper class, lower 40 Karens, pretty much.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, sitting there talking, and as the comedians, like Elijah stalled, and then he started the show, and as he was talking, they would talk louder, and like he acknowledged them and like started joking with them and did a little crowd work. And they would just talk over them and like to themselves, not like be part of the show. And they did it to every comedian. And then finally I got to go up. And that's when they started to leave. I was like, man, this whole time I've been thinking of the worst shit I could say to offend you fucking rude bitches.
And you guys are leaving.
And I was like, I was just about to explain
they
the
took the wind out of your sails.
I was like, I'm fucking stuck right now because I was going to talk about the varicose veins in my penis to these ladies over here. And, well, but it went out. I did that with Vincent Cooper, I think, was there. He's pretty funny. I think he has a podcast out too. I haven't checked out many of his episodes because he does the Zoom thing. I don't know. I like the
man.
I can't do it just because my internet sucks. Can't do the Zoom shows.
Can't have a conversation. It's hard to have a conversation that way. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how do you know if I'm wearing pants? How do you know if I'm...
I don't even do the FaceTime on my phone. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hate when my old lady calls me with that shit. And I'm like, why? You know I'm at home. You know it's just going to be a half like glitchy fucking pixel picture. It pisses me off, and she'll do it like 2 or 3 times. It'll fail, the call will get dropped, and she'll do it again. And I'm like, it's obviously not working.
Just text me.
Well, I just wanted to tell you. You couldn't have called regularly, But that's what's up, man. So that's it. You're J Street. You ain't got nothing else. It's a red flag in the J Street.
Yeah, come catch me at open mics around town.
You're not gonna be at the Tim Loss on the 13th. There's a comedy competition out in Centraville or something like that.
I didn't even hear about it.
Oh, yeah, you should get up with, I'll actually tell him. I'll talk to him about you next time I talk to him. Tim Loss, he puts together a lot of good shows out there in Centraville. I did one with John Maddie and Kyle Fields.
Cool.
And, the place is really, the food is amazing. It's a
nice
barbecue place, but they actually have a whole separate room from the restaurant that's like a stage.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so... we have to get you in on that. I know there's going to be like 10 or 13 comedians that are, and he's got some shows coming up. So
cool. I'm always down, man. I want to get out and get on stage and do as much as I can.
At this point in the game, I feel for us, it's now trying to find spots where we can actually get more time to work. to
a real audience and not just comics.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. But right on, I know it's fucking 8 o'clock. I know my wife's already complaining, but...
Appreciate it, dude. Yeah, this was real.
Hell yeah, man.
Thanks a lot.
Like I said, I hope you come on again.
Yeah, for sure, man.